Nerdrotic.com.
Welcome, travelers, to the fringes of reality, where the strange and mysterious meet, and the thin veil between fact and fiction is torn. Welcome to the Forbidden Frontier.
Hello. Hey, we're not on time, but that's it's Luke's fault. Actually, he was doing show and tell, and we told him to stop because we're going to do it on the show.
Yeah.
It's a big one. I know you're all missing the Golden Globes tonight, and you're really sad. But thanks for being here.
The what?
The Golden Globes. It's an award show for a place called Hollywood where they circle jerk each other, and it's not very fun. This is way more fun because we have a very special guest. So we're going to get right to it. But first, I'm going to say hello to my co-host. We'll start with Quarter Black Garrett. What's up?
Hey, what's up, man? I'm super excited to hear about the stories that Luke has to tell. It's always great watching your content. I've been super excited about this episode. So let's get to it.
Let's get to it. Adam Crigler.
What's
up, buddy?
going on, everybody? Oh man. I'm hyped. I watched like Luke, you were on Brothers of the Serpent.
Yep.
Like right when you got back, and I could see how excited you were.
It was like the morning I got back, or the day I got back, or something like that. Yeah. It was immediate.
Dang.
Yeah. It was. You hit the ground running. It was awesome, and I'm so happy to have you finally on our show to hear about your adventures. Though I've heard a little bit about it already from watching. So, but
yeah,
thanks.
well, it's been good to get to know you as well on Twitter. You're very active.
Yeah, Adam is really nice and subtle on Twitter. He does,
Oh yeah.
No
Well,
on Twitter.
it's funny,
Fly under the radar.
It's like the inverse of that. I'd seen you on the show, and I was like, surely this isn't the same guy when I was seeing your tweets, And but anyways, it's a pleasure to be back on.
Yeah, I have fun on Twitter.
X-Ray Girl, hello.
Hello. This is my first time meeting Luke, so this is great because the last time I think I was hiking on mountains, but I'm excited to hear your adventures down south, very far south from where I am. I'm freezing. I wish I was where you were before.
Yeah. Well, it's a pleasure to talk to you too. You weren't able to. I communicated with you the first time I came on, but you weren't on the show.
I was on my own adventures.
Yeah. She didn't come back with any stories at all. Like none. It's kind of boring.
Just
really.
It's lame.
Tired. Mountains.
Tired.
You got a cool story? I'm tired.
Tired.
Yeah. It was cool.
I just watched a video of
Those cool pictures.
Caverns walking all over a pyramid to the map room from John Williams' Raiders of the Lost Ark soundtrack. So I was that engaged me immediately. So I'm like, oh yeah, all right, that's good. Hope you didn't get dinged for that. Did you get dinged for that?
No, you know what? I have a guy that I pay to recreate soundtracks for me. And so I send him something that I like, and he makes a whole hour-long composure for me. And I've got 4 or 5 of these, and so I kind of cut them up and splice them together throughout my videos. So it sounds a lot like it, but it's not quite the same thing.
That's pretty
Genius.
Yeah,
I like it.
Well, because I used to listen. That's my favorite piece from the Raiders of the Lost Ark soundtrack.
Oh yeah. That and Marion's theme is pretty good too.
Marion's theme.
That's my favorite one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite actually. Yeah, that's just such a sweet, such a sweet melody.
It's adventurous and it's romantic, like the movie is supposed to be. So it's like the perfect one right in the middle.
Yeah, for sure.
I like the map room because it like really John Williams is the best at this because it's music that's telling the story that they are messing with something way beyond them that's godly, and it just feels you feel it in the music. It's freaking rad.
Yeah, that's sorry, not to cut you off, but yeah, I love soundtracks are so important. I think Adam, I think we talked about this on Twitter maybe, where I was talking about how the cinematic or the theatrical cut of Troy is better than the extended version.
Right.
And it's because of the music, man. Like, you know, they pull away all the drums and they leave the choir and the strings there, and the music sounds really ethereal and timeless. So you know that something big is happening. You know, Indiana Jones music is like real subtle. You know, there's not a lot of drums. There's not a lot of I don't know how to explain it more than that. It's like John Williams is very ethereal. You know what I mean? It's this timeless kind of music that really makes the movie seem bigger than it is, or bigger than life, you know.
Well, what's great about it is that John Williams, as always, he knows when to hit those loud over, like the horns and stuff like that, and then come down low when it needs to be. You know, that's that part of telling the story.
Yeah, for sure.
That's so great about it.
Troy was James Horner. James Horner's awesome. He did Wrath of Khan.
Yeah. I didn't mean to say that John Williams did Troy, but yeah, that
no.
Yeah, that soundtrack for Troy is unbelievably good.
Yeah. I haven't seen that movie forever. I need to see it again.
I kind of want to watch it now that you mention it.
It's good.
I personally think it's one of the best ancient epics ever. And what's terrible is I was just thinking about this. I just watched Gladiator the other day for the first time in forever. And man, that's a great movie. But where did all those movies go? You know, I mean,
I don't know.
We haven't had the ancient epics. Like, I don't even think there's really been one since what, 300, like the sequel to 300?
Sequel to 300, 10,000 BC, which could have been tons of fun, but it was terrible. But
Gladiator 2 is coming out this year.
We're getting Gladiator 2 this year.
So, well, they did it Exodus, Gods and Kings. That was not too long ago. That was like 2015 or something.
Oh, maybe I need to go see that then.
Which 2015 is a long time ago.
Yeah, well, let's go see Gladiator.
Think about it.
That sounds good.
9 years.
I will see. I have to see, just out of curiosity, I have to see Gladiator 2.
Yeah, like I don't know. That one's really interesting because it went through production hell and it went through all these different scripts and stuff. So see what they finally landed.
And it's Ridley Scott, right? He's directing it.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah,
crazy.
Well, are they going to bring him back, Russell Crowe? I mean,
no.
In the original script, they bring him back and he becomes like some warrior. For the or some.
It's like there's a time travel involved in one of them or something. Like it's just wacky. It's super wacky. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he's. Well, Russell Crowe's put on some COVID weight since then, so. But he can always, get it off. So
or they might show like, hey, this is an overweight gladiator. It's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, body positivity gladiator. No.
Yeah, they might do that. Yeah, an obese gladiator, he can get along just like anybody else. He can survive. He can make it to the end.
Well, yeah, he doesn't have to eat that much.
Yeah, or he's Caesar now, right? They can go that angle.
Yeah.
Although he's dead.
It'll be interesting. So Luke, you just got back from a trip. I mean, relatively recently.
Yeah.
And you posted a video today, which I watched, which was brilliant. Tell us a little bit about that trip.
Well, it was a it was like a personal research kind of trip, and I was able to drag one of my buddies who wants to get into adventure, videography down there. And it was like I go on trips where I bring people with me, and then I go on my own research trips to, just to see things for myself. And so I went to an area of Mexico that I'd never been to before. So we landed in Cancun, and then we drove like 6 hours south to like the border of Guatemala, right north of the border of Guatemala. And so all along that area, you're kind of cutting straight through the middle part of the Petén rainforest. And so the Petén rainforest, which is essentially in the center of the Yucatan Peninsula, basically right at the center of Central America, if you want to call South Mexico part of Central America. And so all along this road that goes east to west, is just a countless amount of ancient ruins out there. We were driving out in the sticks, and I've got a video of it that will probably come out, I don't know, the next couple months. And you're driving down the road and you look off to the side. I have hundreds of photos of this, and if you look really closely, it's all flat area, and it's just pyramid, 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 pyramid. I'm talking about easily thousands of them, easily thousands, and they're enormous. Like
here, I get the area. Where is it exactly?
So, do you see the Reserva de Biosfera Maya that's in Flores, Guatemala, just north of Flores, Guatemala?
Flores.
Yeah. So you see that? So you see that border
this
between?
Here?
Yeah. So do you see where it says Kalak Mul? That all around there is where I was. So you're about 40 miles out into the jungle out there. So you're on these little dirt roads, and there's nothing out there. Like I think on day 5 or 6, I got heat stroke, and I didn't realize that I was getting heat stroke, and I didn't realize how easily I could get it until we visit, because we were going like 3 sites a day. Like I was packing it all in. Like when all these episodes get out, I just put out the 3rd episode today. There's like 18 different episodes of this series that we did in 11 days. So we went to 18 different ancient cities in 11 days. And on day 5 or 6, I had like run myself to the bone. Like we were filming really, really hard. And the video that came out today is the day that I got heat stroke, was making that video. And because we were doing shoots all day long, like, climbing over the ruins, trying to, get the feeling across of being in the middle of the jungle. And that's hard to do on video. You have to actually be there to feel it. Yeah. So you have to convey that on camera. It takes a tremendous amount of work. So that day I just wore myself to the bone, and I ended up getting heat stroke. And so it was weird, man. I ate like a little snack before I went to bed, and then I woke up and I threw everything up, and all of a sudden I had the flu, and I'm like laying in the middle of the jungle. And we had these little tents that are in the middle of the jungle, and that wouldn't sound like it was really comfortable, but somehow it was. And I slept for like 30 hours or something like that, right in the middle of the trip on the jungle floor. And we didn't have any blankets, so I'm like covering myself in a Carhartt jacket, laying on the jungle floor, like shivering, like my whole body was freezing. And so I was having heat stroke, and so we had to. So the nearest place to get food was 40 miles away. And so we ended up coming across this little restaurant that these nice Mexican ladies, host at the front of their house. And so we had like 3 square meals with them, like big meals, some of the best food I've ever had in my life. And I was right back into it after that. And so somewhere in the middle of the trip, I got heat stroke and thought I was going to die.
You were so lucky.
Wow.
Because it took me like 3 days to recover from heat stroke.
Yeah. I couldn't even believe it. Like, I just thought when we were going out there, the guy that I was traveling with who lives in Merida, Mexico, he was kind of taking us around, chauffeuring us. And he was like, man, be careful. You can get heat stroke. And I was like, I can't get heat stroke. Not me. I'm
young and healthy.
I'm a young strapping lad.
The elements will say otherwise.
Yeah. But it's, it's tremendously common down there. Like the initial explorers, Stevens and Catherwood in the 1830s who went down there. They have a great book series called Incidents of Travel in the Yucatan. I'm sure we'll talk about books later, so I can show you those. But these guys mapped from Honduras all the way up to Merida, Mexico, which is on the northwestern side of the Yucatan. And they got sick multiple times from heat stroke, malaria. It's crazy. Like out there, things just creep up on you. There's all kinds of bacteria and viruses that live in the jungle, and it's really easy to get it, and it just sneaks up on you. And you don't really think that it's going to happen to you, but sure enough, heat stroke got me. But aside from that, the trip was great. It was the most remote that I had ever gone into any jungle before. And man, I saw I saw so much. I can't wait for all these videos to come out. Man, I saw like, so the deeper you go into the jungle, the more, I would say, complex and megalithic the architecture gets. So the blocks get bigger, and the stelae, if you guys know what stelae are, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. So a stele is plural for the word stela. Stela is essentially, and what's interesting is these are seen all over the ancient world. So you have stela, or you have stelae that are in Egypt. You also have some in Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, whatever.
Between the Sphinx,
yep,
that's a stela.
That's the dream stela. And so so you have that same type of monument is seen in Central America as well. However, the dream stela in front of the Sphinx, I believe, is made out of granite. These are just massive blocks of limestone. There isn't granite that's immediately available, like for ancient people to mine out of the ground. It's all limestone in Central America and southern Mexico. So anyways, you have these stela that are 12, 15 feet tall by, I don't even know, my arm span wide. I can't even wrap my arm around one side of them. And we were at a city where there was, I think, 120 stela or stelae that were that size, with some of the largest pyramids I've ever seen in my life. And it was like this overwhelming sense of this ancient world is so much bigger and so much more vast than I can comprehend. The way to put it is like this. If you go to Egypt and you go from Giza to the deserts of Dashur, so it's like 15 miles away, you're going to see a lot of flat land. When you're in Giza, you're going to see Cairo next to it. And then it's just going to be empty space between, at least in the ancient world, it would have been empty space between Cairo and Memphis. And then you get down, in between, let's go, was it 500 miles south of there? You get down to Aswan. There's a lot of empty space there where nothing's happening. In the Maya world, there is literally no empty space at all. It's everywhere. And all of the pyramids are at least the size of the smaller pyramids in Egypt, which are colossal. So it's just, I was at a city, the last episode, I'm kind of spoiling it. The last episode of Jungle of Stone, I got to come up with a title that's good enough for it. But it's truly a city that has never been mapped. It doesn't have an official name. It's a virgin site. So the way you're seeing it is the way it has looked for the last almost 2,000 years, except for looters that have been there. And so we walk around this site for about an hour in this video, and we see 18 pyramids. Like, we climb up 18 pyramids in one video. And I mean, like, if the jungle, I can't even say how big it is. We were in one little blip of that. We just walked around like the size of a 2 or 3 football fields, and there were 18 pyramids there that were enormous.
So this is a vast culture.
I cannot I haven't come up with the words to explain how vast. When you're there and you see it, and you drive for 3 hours, and you've been looking outside the window for 3 hours, and you've never stopped seeing pyramids, it sets in how vast this is, and how easily, you wouldn't think, you'd think it would be really hard to just walk off in the jungle and find an ancient city. If you had the resources and you just walked in a straight line, you would find one for sure. There's no within definitely a couple hours.
So we're talking at least the vastness of like our modern day cities.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So like New York City, and then the connectedness of that.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it like could you, if you compared it to a city, yep. what would you?
Yeah,
compare it to?
Okay, the vastness is comparable to, have you guys ever flown from like Washington D.C. to New York City? Yeah. And you look out the window and you would think like, oh wait, so Baltimore, like I'm flying over Delaware, you're flying over, or God, I think I flew from Boston to New York City, or Boston to Washington D.C. And so you see, Boston to D.C. And so I'm seeing Baltimore and Jersey City and New York City, and you're seeing all these cities, but it just looks like one city. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no differentiation between them. It's just
megalopolis.
It's just one continuous
megalopolis.
Wow.
It's just one
like a
continuous
greater
settlement
area.
forever. That's what the Maya world is like. You can't tell. It just continues forever. Like we were at the biggest, one of the biggest Maya sites that there is. It's called Calakmul, and and so anybody could look this up. It's a huge site. I mean, there's so many pyramids, giant acropolis there. That's the city that has 110 to 130 stelae, just that they've documented that are standing up, and these are colossal stelae. And so I'm walking around this this site, and so I always like to walk off to the edges to look off in the jungle and see what else is out there. What's on display is just what they've cleared out. Like the city just keeps going forever. The city actually keeps going just for 40 miles. In the city that I was in, where I walked around those 18 different pyramids, was connected to Calakmul, and I had driven 40 miles away to get to that city, and it was connected.
That's massive.
It's insane.
That's really cool, though.
Oh, it's just
so. What took this? What took it out? What like that's the question, right? It's
well,
like,
I mean,
what destroyed it?
That backs up. Graham mentioned this in his book, of course. So of history, teachers. Francisco de Orellana, who was the Spanish conquistador who basically accidentally crossed the Amazon. He just went on a hunting expedition, and they just kept going. They couldn't go back downstream, and he reported seeing dense populations of large cities on the Amazon River. Now, this is far from where Luke was talking about, but I think it's a great example of like, and it's mentioned that like right now the Amazon is not fertile for humans. It's fertile for tree and foliage and stuff, but like for humans to go and eat and grow, it's terrible. So that's how they have that terra preta.
Yep.
They have that weird soil that we can't even mimic today. We don't even know exactly what it is, but it's a soil that doesn't die. Basically, it's a soil that you can just grow shit in forever. It's like maybe biochar. Luke would probably know more than me. I'm just going off of what I've heard. But it's some form of soil that doesn't go bad. But that guy reported seeing millions of people, and then when they went back like 100 years later, they were gone.
Yep. Yeah. So the eradication of people in the Amazon is not, or the eradication of population in the Amazon is not the same as the eradication of the Maya Maya civilization. So if you guys want, I'll explain it to you.
Sure.
And I know that Garrett was just asking me about what happened to the Maya people. I have a video that I just filmed that's going to be out this week about that.
Awesome.
Perfect.
And it's called like, did a volcanic eruption in the Maya civilization, kind of like similar to Pompeii. And so I'm so glad you asked about that. Okay,
interesting.
So let's start with the Amazon. So the Amazon, Francisco de Orellana goes down the Amazon sometime in the 1500s. I know so many dates that I get them all mixed up. Sometime in the 1500s, he goes down the Amazon, early 1500s, I believe. Yeah. Directly prior to the conquest of the Inca, I think. And so he's going down the Amazon, and Graham's right that he didn't initially intend to, but he's all looking for riches, and there's all these different stories, kind of like we talked about last time about El Dorado, and so there's all these Ecuadorian and Colombian tribes that are telling him, hey, don't mess with us. There's more gold down there. There's cities of wealth that are down there. Oh, just keep on going down the Amazon. You'll see it. Well, a commonly thought idea is that these tribes were lying about the existence of cities like El Dorado, and we're just sending them on down,
which is hilarious.
Which is funny. I'd do that.
Yeah.
Oh, we ain't got no gold, man. Go over there. They got all the gold.
Keep checking it out. There's a big city. It's over there.
Garrett's house. Don't rob me.
Yeah. And so I think that is one of those things that's both right and wrong, because that story is told by a lot of traditional academics have like a dismissive explanation for everything. They're like, oh well, El Dorado. They just lied to the conquistadors and told them to keep on going down the Amazon. Well, I think that it's both. So when you're in the Western Amazon, where Francisco de Orellana began, that's all clay soil. There is no bedrock there. So how are you going to, now granted, your coastal civilizations had a lot of access to gold. So there's a bunch of Eldorados. Like, it's not just one. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of Eldorados that exist out there. But perhaps there was one that was particularly set apart from the rest, and so that becomes part of legend. Like there's the lost city of Z, which we don't know that exact name. There's a city of Manoa, and then there's El Dorado, and there's a couple others. These are not all the same name, or these are not all different names for the same city. These are different names for different cities that existed in somewhere in South America that thus far haven't been found. So anyways, so he's continuing on down the Amazon. And so he's not seeing these big stone, cities with lots of gold, and the natives that they capture and interrogate, to try to find this gold, keep telling them, keep going down the river, keep going down the river. Well, they keep going. Sure enough, they find stone cities. They find cities with huge walls built on the banks of the Amazon when they get halfway down the Amazon. Why is that? Because they reach stone bedrock. About halfway through South America, that's when you hit granite. That's when you hit limestone. And so there are stone cities now. And so from halfway through South America, halfway through the Amazon, through the rest of Brazil until you reach the East Coast, he was seeing stone-walled cities, and millions of people living in these cities, but they've never been found. Just because, and I document it so much on in my Jungle of Stone series I'm putting out right now. When you guys see these episodes when they come out, I just put out an episode, not this one that came out, but the one that came out before. There were people leaving comments on it. They're like, just looks like big hills to me. Those obviously aren't pyramids. And I'm like, well, that's why we haven't found the cities that are in South America, because they just look like hills. The jungle grows over it and buries the structure under the ground. And any of the stone, the vines and tree trunks grow between the stones and pull them apart. And then a lot of times there are interiors to these structures as well. And we may have talked about this last time, but it looks like when Amazonian civilization, when Peruvian civilization is finally introduced to Amazonian religion, all of a sudden Peruvian civilizations start building stone temples, but with interiors this time. So there's labyrinths there's tunnels that go through it. So it looks like there's some kind of architectural influence coming somewhere from out of the Amazon and inspiring people in Peru. And so, but we never found these stone structures deeper into the Amazon. So anyways, Francisco Orellana definitely saw these civilizations with millions and millions and millions of people. Presumably like 20 million or so are thought to have lived in the Amazon. Well, when they're going through, when the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Dutch are going through South America, they had been noticing that the South Americans were sick. Like there was some kind of evil spirit that was going around South America. And by the time I'm blanking on the name, but by the time that the Spanish conquistadors reached Peru, the Inca were already becoming sick. And the Incan emperor, he was dying of illness already. So where did this illness come from?
Yeah,
well, it probably came from. So Columbus lands in the Bahamas, and then they go close, and then they go further into the Caribbean. And there are some merchant expeditions going from Jamaica, and another small island there. They're coming from Jamaica into South America and along the Yucatan, kind of just examining it, trying to make relations with people. These are like independent voyages of explorers and merchants, going down there. So, boom, that's it.
Man, you should have quarantined
for 3 years.
So yes, that's exactly right. COVID 1492. But it would have actually been a little bit later than that, probably like 1501-ish, when Spaniards start crossing over into the Yucatan and start crossing into South America. They expose, the diseases that they have, which came from Europe, which came from Africa and Asia. So Europeans got these illnesses from Africa and Asia and then brought them to the Americas. And so over the course of the next 30 years until the early 1530s, those diseases are making their way down the Yucatan and then down Central America and then getting into South America. And then, the disease is leaping in front of the Spanish conquistadors and just infecting people left and right. And so after the conquest of Peru, that just kicked it off, to accelerated the spread of disease beyond anything that could be controlled. So you had disease at that point sweeping through North, Central, and South America at a rate that is so fast that if you took every single Spaniard living in Mexico at the time of the siege of Tenochtitlan, which was the capital of the Aztec world, if you took every single Spaniard, put a sword in his hand, and had him cut down a Native American every minute for 50 years, it would not come close to the amount of Native Americans that died from disease in the first 50 years.
Man, that's terrifying.
And
how fast that can move.
Forgive my ignorance, folks, on the history, because I've been kicked out of 3 high schools. But isn't it interesting that the disease didn't work the other way? Certainly, Spanish got sick. Yeah. They did, but they didn't die at the rates that the Native Americans did. That's weird.
No.
So maybe they just have better tolerances because they've been around more.
And why didn't it happen to North American natives?
No, it did.
It did. It did.
Well, not to the same effect,
not the same rate. But it did.
Yeah, to the same rate, guys.
Really? Okay.
To the same rate.
Wow.
That really contributed to how easy it was to conquer.
all the way up to Canada. Civilizations were being wiped out.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. Like the native, ancient Eskimo tribes gone.
Yeah.
Like by the time Europeans arrived there, there's like these Eskimo ruins and very, very few people living out there. So to kind of go a step further in this, population, just apocalypse.
Yeah.
So, and then I'll address the volcano and the Maya thing. So, does everybody know who Squanto was? Squanto was around for the first Thanksgiving. He was the Native American that helped the Pilgrims. Somebody remind me when the year that the first Thanksgiving was. I just did an essay over this, but I have so many dates in my head that I can't pull dates. Like,
dude, I touched one of the cups that was at
1621.
The Blaze. They have a museum that holds a bunch of like really crazy historical objects, like a lot of American stuff. And they had one of the wooden cups that those settlers used.
Oh, that's amazing.
And they gave it to him. I was like, is this okay? Like, this shouldn't be allowed to touch. Like, this needs to be in a vault somewhere. It was super cool.
Unfortunately, I think that's where a good share of our artifacts are private collections. But at least Glenn lets people
dude, all of the best artifacts are in private collections that will never be documented.
Nope.
All of the coolest stuff that we don't even know that exists in Egypt is in a private collection.
A Russian oligarch has the Ark of the Covenant,
it may seem like that's a very downer idea. Like, we're never going to see these things, but I think it's more of a silver lining because that means it still exists. That means it's still been kept like whole and not destroyed over time or whatever. Like, it's still out there. So that person may sell it or donate it to a museum at some
someday.
Point. There's a hope. It's not just vanished and gone forever.
I mean, like going to the British Museum like we did, and going to the Louvre and what are those? Oh, what are they called again? Lamassus, the giant freaking Mesopotamian horse guy. The Lamassus.
Yep.
Fucking, we all three, Adam and Garrett and I stood next to one. They're huge.
And we came up to like the top of their leg.
Huge. I didn't think they were that big, but it was cool to see.
Yeah.
And then they were plundered. They were all plundered.
Yeah. Well, and
proudly by the British.
Recently they're all being blown up and hit with drills and getting their heads like drilled off.
Yeah, that's tragic.
It's crazy, man.
So that's why it's good that they're plundered somewhat. Sorry, Luke, continue.
Okay, yeah. So anyways, so this is a really interesting story about two worlds kind of coming together. And Garrett, I think you just reminded me of this when you said when we were talking about why the conversation we were just having reminded me of this.
Yeah.
But, we were talking about how Europeans might have been more immune to foreign viruses that definitely existed in the Americas. There weren't as many, but there certainly, viruses did exist.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they definitely had an immunity to, they lived among filth. Like Europeans
Good point.
had been living among filth for, let's see, that's the 1500s. So 1,000, 2,000 years before that is the birth of Rome. Okay, and Rome was a glorious city that was absolutely disgusting to live in. Like you're talking about walking in poop and mud every single day, every day. And so Europeans have been living amongst filth for 2,000 years prior to
gross.
Prior to meeting Native Americans. And so, that immune system was just very robust. So anyways, this kind of there's a really cool story that not a lot of people know about. I just did an essay over this on a video. So there were merchant vessels that were coming from London, I believe, and in the early 1500s, like let's say, so the first Thanksgiving is 1521. I'm sorry, 1621.
Yes.
20,
yeah,
or 21.
Yeah, 1621. So in around 1613, there is a merchant vessel that's going up and down the coastline of New England up to Newfoundland, and then going back over to London. And so they're kind of interacting with native people, trying to see, like, is there any resources that we can extract from these people to bring back to London that we can sell, So what they end up doing is they end up capturing some Native American, young Native American men and women, like a few of them. Well, we don't really know what happens to all of the ones that were captured, but there was somebody who, there was a young man who was captured in like 1614, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And his name was Squanto, and he was brought to London. So imagine going from being a Native American living in harmony with your natural environment to now walking down cobblestone streets, seeing these giant ships, seeing cannons, seeing stone buildings, cathedral churches. Like it's literally taking a Native American and placing them in a civilization that spawned from Rome. Think about everything that Rome had and what came in the medieval times. This is after medieval times. So you're talking about an incredibly advanced society and a Native American being placed in it. So he lived there from 1614-ish, somewhere around 1615, and learned how to speak English and worked for the shopkeeper who abducted him. But they had a good relationship, supposedly, because Squanto liked English people. He liked white people. And so he had given up so much information, like so much geographical information, resource information about North America, or specifically New England, that he was able to barter his way to get home. And so in 1620, like the year before the first Thanksgiving, he barters his way home. So he lived in Massachusetts, and so his tribe was in Massachusetts. And so the merchant, he was a real nice guy, apparently. And he goes, yeah, Squanto, we'll get you home. Thank you for this, 9 years that you've spent kidnapped or, being held hostage in England. Yeah. I'm going to let you go back home, but I'm going to have to drop you off in Newfoundland. So he has to go, he has to find a way.
Wow. Okay.
Oh,
and he's by himself. He's by himself, guys. So they drop him off in Newfoundland. We don't really know how Squanto got home, but he got home by himself. So we think that he probably built a canoe of some kind, or had money to get like a little, like a little rowboat, or a little, some kind of sailboat.
Sea turtles.
And so, yeah. And so
he tied them together.
He navigates his way from Newfoundland, which I should remind you is disconnected from the mainland. You have to sail over. Yeah. So he sails himself back to the mainland, into Maine, and then somehow navigates his way back down to his tribe in Massachusetts. And when he got there, the disease from Mexico, Central and South America had finally arrived, and all of his family members and all of his friends had died. The only people who were still alive were the enemy tribes. And I think he formed the Wampanoag Confederation, which was essentially, he was the most like educated, guy around. Like he had seen the world at this point, so he was able to, and people knew who he was. He was like an important person to his tribe. That's why he was captured. I think he was like a lead warrior. We don't really know the exact details, but there's a reason that he was kidnapped, because he was somebody who was held in esteem by his own people. So he was valuable, to be kidnapped. So anyways, he returns home miraculously, unites all of his enemy tribes, and basically says, we have to stick together to survive. So, this is like 1619, 1620. The next year goes by and somebody comes out, he's now like the king of his area, the chieftain of his area. And so he's made aware of all of the, ongoings, things that have been going on in the time that he was gone. And then he's made aware of a small village of white people who are living on the coast of, what is today modern day Massachusetts. And they're struggling and they're starving and they're dying, and half of them have died. They're not hostile, they've never hurt any of the Indians, as far as I know. And so they didn't really know what to do about this. It's theorized that maybe they wanted to attack them to wipe them out while they're sick. But Squanto apparently had good experiences in England and he was treated well. So imagine you're in a suffering pilgrim village and you don't know if you're going to make it through the next winter, as winter's approaching and it's fall, and a Native American comes out of the forest and he's speaking English, and he's speaking perfect English. And he's like, my name's Squanto. I'm here to help all of you. So he teaches them, how to survive in North America. And so, they have the first Thanksgiving, which is essentially just like a multi-day feast where they all got together and kind of prepared to hunker down for the winter, but they ate all of their food that they were able to grow, and they were celebrating the fact that everyone was pretty much going to survive. So we were talking about this before the show. That is a historical epic right there. Oh my God.
That is a movie.
Where's the Squanto movie?
That should be a movie, and then it ends with Thanksgiving.
Well,
it's perfect.
I'm getting to the ending.
There's more. There's a twist.
It's gonna end like a foreign film.
Is it
Everybody dies.
Did everyone die?
So they have their first Thanksgiving, and it's a success. And so the Wampanoag Confederation is growing. They have great relationships with the pilgrims. More and more pilgrims are coming in, and in the next year, another wave of disease comes through Native America, and Squanto gets sick and he dies on the second Thanksgiving on that day.
No way.
From European disease that had come up from Mexico.
Wow.
The end.
That's how you end the movie.
They should call that holiday no good deed goes unpunished.
I know, man. Yeah, and he was. I think we estimate he was around. He didn't really know how old he was, but it's estimated that he was in his mid-30s. He was like 35 when he died.
So young.
So he was old for then. I'm just
wow.
kidding.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
the average maybe.
Average was 45.
Yeah, like 45.
Yeah.
A lot of people, so the average gets brought down because you have a bunch of warriors that die, right? Like if you're a chieftain, you're living to your 60s and 70s, in the ancient world, like in ancient Egypt, sometimes the average, even in ancient Greece and Rome, like the average lifespan for a woman is like 35, but it's because so many terrible things would happen to people and they would die early, right? So the average is like really brought down from diseases that come around and warfare. And, in really ancient times, when your city gets ransacked, you better not let your city get ransacked because all of the women and children are going to die too, so averages are really, really, really brought down. But it's not really indicative.
The babies,
so much
like babies that don't make it, bring down the average a lot.
Oh,
yeah,
right?
I would imagine.
Much. Yeah. I mean, there were I'm reading a lot about Rome and Greece right now, and yeah, I mean, there's a Roman empress who had we know that she had 7 children, but only 2 of them lived to adulthood. So the infant mortality rate is skyrocketing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the day-to-day life isn't so unbearable. There are just very considerable dangers to being alive in that time that can end your life just like that. You know what I mean? You're not like on the brink of death every single day, but it's just a lot more likely that something really bad is going to happen to you at some point, and then boom, you're gone. You know? So so that is the fall of South America and North America. Is a lot to disease, and Central America, but Central America, like Mesoamerica, I should say, it is kind of an interesting story. So the Maya had already fallen by the time Europeans arrived in the Yucatan, and so it's still a mystery today. But kind of piece it together. But this video that I'm working on right now is essentially it's titled "Did a Volcanic Eruption End the Maya Civilization?" Because there's a volcano in Chiapas that erupted in the 1980s, I believe, or 1990s, and it killed like 2,000 or 3,000 people. Just completely leveled the surrounding towns, like buried them under 10 feet of soot, and just it changed the weather patterns in Chiapas, Mexico, for like. It changed the weather patterns as far away as Honduras. And so you have Chiapas over here, you have all of Guatemala in the middle, and Honduras, their weather patterns are affected for a few months after this volcano. And what's interesting is, I read this the other day, the volcanic eruption was so powerful that there were people feeling it in Siberia at the time that it went off, which is like directly on the opposite side of the planet. So
it like reverberated all the way back.
I guess so.
Man.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know what I mean? It's interesting that people in Texas don't feel this, but somebody in Siberia does.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of an anomalous thing. But anyways, so when geologists study the soil levels around Chiapas, around this volcano, they end up finding out that the most recent time that it erupted was in the 90s or in the 80s. And the time before that was in 800 AD, which is exactly the fall of the classic Maya.
Wow.
Yes, El Chichon. Yeah, so
that's a huge crater.
1982.
And that was set. Wow. The picture says it's 7 months after the eruption.
Yeah, man,
that's freaking massive.
Can we see on Google Maps where this is?
Yeah, I can find it. You got it.
How do you spell?
So it's going to be it's going to be EL space CHICHON. El Chichon.
El Chichonal on the map. Wow, it's humongous.
Yeah,
it's pretty big.
Oh my god, I would love to hike up that though.
Yeah, it's enormous. So that's I'm not sure. I think it's 50 miles west of Palenque, which Palenque is a major Maya city. Oh yes. So when this volcano erupted, it covered the city of Palenque, which I think we talked about briefly last time I was on. Which is one of the main cities of the Maya classic period, which collapsed in 800 AD. So when this volcano erupted in 1982, it covered all of the ruins in soot from this volcano.
Yeah.
And so there had to be people out there to like instantly clean it off, and it permanently damaged a lot of the murals that are on the temples at Palenque. So, a lot of the damage.
So imagine what happened to all the crops and the farming.
Gone. I mean, gone. And all of that surrounding farmland wasn't usable for years afterwards,
right?
And all the little surrounding towns, which I can't believe there's people living around it today, but I guess they don't have to worry about it for another 1,000 years or so.
It's a little bit of a space.
Yeah. So, all the surrounding towns and villages were gone. So, anyways, it's just interesting that a volcano happens right at the end of the Maya classic period. So, let's use Egypt is where I started studying ancient history. So that's my point of reference for everything. And I think that's a lot of people's point of reference for everything. So in Egypt, you've got your different periods, right? You've got your pre-dynastic, which is really remote ancient history. You've got your Old Kingdom, which is when they say that the Great Pyramids were built. That's when all the megalithic crazy stuff that that everybody theorizes about, that's where that's attributed. Then there's the Middle Kingdom, and then there's the New Kingdom, and then you've got like then you've got the Greek periods leading up to Cleopatra's death. But you've had these different time periods, but essentially it's the Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, and New Kingdom. And that's when the Egyptians ruled, right? Well, in the Maya world, we have a similar thing. You've got the pre-classic, the classic, and the post-classic. And then pre-classic, you have like your prehistoric era, right? So we call it the classic period because that is just the most iconic, longest reign of the Maya. This is anywhere from around 200 to 100 BC all the way to 800 AD. So roughly 800 to 1,000 years long of this reign. After that, they move from the jungles north into the Yucatan, and their entire civilization changes. Like they really start worshiping their gods after that point, which is really interesting. They go from divine god kings, like we see in ancient Egypt at the very beginning of Egyptian civilization. Whether or not people think that the pyramids in Egypt were built by the Egyptians, there's no denying that Khufu, Khafre, Senefru, Menkaure, all of these kings actually existed, and they were actually worshipped by gods, or they were actually worshipped like they were a god. The Egyptian pantheon existed, but the kings were really the most important thing in Egypt. They had divine power. And so what's interesting is in the Maya world, they're god kings from, the pre-classic and the classic area. They're these god kings, and you go into an ancient city and all of the murals are of kings, hieroglyphics, 2D hieroglyphics carved onto a wall, kind of very similar to ancient Egypt. And so for some reason around 800 AD, which is 1,200 years ago, it all goes silent. The cities are just all abandoned. And then everyone moves north and they build a whole new civilization, essentially, like a whole, not entirely different religions, but just taking their religion seriously to another level. So what exactly happened? Well, the little bits of evidence that we have as to why they fell is, let's exclude the volcano for now, because there's a lot of one volcano isn't going to completely level society from Western Chiapas all the way over to Honduras, where Copan is at, because Copan's a huge city. It's like it's a Maya megalopolis, essentially. I mean, it was so important that, do you guys know where Teotihuacan is, which is in the Mexican Valley? It's Mexico City, essentially. It was so important, and Mesoamerican society as a whole was so important, or so interconnected. I mean, that there was a king from Teotihuacan installed, which is in Mexico City, all the way down at Copan in Honduras. So they had dynastic families coming across. And Teotihuacan, having such an influence on the Maya world, was a real point of contention during the classic Maya period, because the Maya people wanted their own identity. And so you have all these different... if anyone here is familiar with ancient Greece, in ancient Greece, there is one of the main points of contention is Greece was never united. Like Rome fixed that problem. When Rome conquered Greece, they basically leveled all of their cities and made them all unite. But you had Sparta and you had Athens. You had all these cities constantly. You had the Mycenaean people and the Minoan people warring against each other. Greece could never get along. The Maya world could never get along. So we call it all one civilization. But no, these are different city-states that follow the same religion, but they can never get along with each other. And one of the reasons is half of the Maya world is an extension of Teotihuacan. And we don't really know what was going on. Like, it's possible that Teotihuacan was taking a tribute from the Maya world, like taking an insane amount of tax. So you had some of these cities that arose in the Maya world that didn't want to be influenced by Teotihuacan, like their own revolutionary type of cities. So there's this big exodus of Teotihuacan influence in the Maya world. So you have Calakmul, which is the city I was just at. They go to war against Tikal and Palenque, which and Tonina, which are all heavily influenced by Teotihuacan. And they're basically, and we know this from when we were talking about earlier, the stelae that are found everywhere. Those hieroglyphs tell the story of the Maya world. So what's really interesting is it's all propaganda, right? So how we know that these wars are going on. Here's something really interesting as a side note. Yavin 4 in Star Wars, where is that filmed? Does anybody know?
South America. It's right there. It's in.
Is it?
Yes.
Not South America, but Guatemala.
Guatemala. Central,
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
So
Central America.
I feel ashamed.
So that is the Maya city of Tikal. Okay. The war that Tikal had with Guatemala. So, I'm sorry, that they had with Calakmul. So Calakmul has this big alliance with all these Maya cities in the north. In the south, there's another alliance. That alliance is connected to Teotihuacan, which is a massive empire like Rome, essentially, living in Mexican Valley. So you've got these two mortal enemies in the Maya world. One of them wants to be only Maya. The other one wants to keep their Teotihuacan influence and still serve Teotihuacan. Well, what's interesting is the hieroglyphs say that this war was called the Star Wars. That's what
that's awesome.
That's where it comes from. That's where Star Wars comes from. So Yavin 4 that we see in A New Hope, Star Wars, the iconic Star Wars, that is Tikal. That's the temple of the Jaguar. And he's paying homage to the Maya world by having the rebels, the good guys based out of Tikal, which Tikal arguably were not the good guys, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. So that's cool. That's where Star Wars comes from. So we have all these different hieroglyphs and all these different Maya cities, and we only have a fragment of it. Like there's a site called El Peru that's in Guatemala, in western Guatemala, way out in the middle of the jungle. Well, that site, when it was discovered, there were a few stelae there that could be that the hieroglyphs could be deciphered, and it just opened up a whole new aspect to the Star Wars that were happening. And so but what's interesting is this: these cities never record their defeats, right? So you only get half of the story every time you find a new city. So now we found so many cities with so many stelae.
You're walking around, you're like, how are all the cities undefeated? How is this even possible?
Yeah, exactly.
Is there one city state that's like 0-50 or something? Like,
we need stats. That's what we need.
Some stats.
We're missing those documents.
The cities that are 0-50 are like totally burned to the ground.
Yeah, they are.
All of their stones are repurposed for other things. So you could kind of only have the victors left, or pretty powerful cities. So anyways, long story short, we know there's this giant point of contention. There are these wars that are going on for decades and decades and decades and decades, where one side of the Maya world is like, forget your Teotihuacan influence. In the end, Calakmul ends up winning. Like the Northern Alliance ends up beating the Southern, Alliance. And or I should say, like, the Northern rebels end up beating like the guys who are aligned to the Teotihuacan Empire. So they push Teotihuacan out, and from then on, all of the hieroglyphs in the Maya world only reflect Maya heritage. There is no more Teotihuacan imagery after like the late 700s-ish AD. But then all of a sudden around 800 AD, poof, it doesn't matter who won. They're all the cities are abandoned. So, like, what happened? Well, then, so that's one part of the mystery. But then you look at like Tikal. And so they had these big reservoirs because there's no, this is in the middle of the Petén rainforest. They had all these reservoirs, and they had to create reservoirs to store their water because they didn't have flowing rivers coming through. And so I think I'm not an expert on this in particularly, but this is just one example of one city. This isn't like a perfect explanation for the civilization as a whole, but probably there were other cities, almost definitely there were other cities doing exactly the same thing. I believe that through the paint that they were using to construct their temples, they were poisoning their own water supply accidentally. So they destroyed their own water supply at Tikal, which is the city that is the Yavin 4 rebel base in Star Wars. They destroyed their own city, so they had to abandon it because there was no water anymore. Well, something really similar happens at Copan, which is huge Maya, metropolis. They cut down all of their trees. Like, Imagine a civilization so enormous that's living in a jungle that can create a city so big that they cut down all of their own trees, so much so to the point that it disrupts the weather patterns in that area, and all of their farmland is destroyed because they cut down that many trees. Imagine how many trees we cut down today, and we haven't messed up our weather patterns. They cut down a lot more than that. That's how big the civilization was. Like, I can't even imagine that. Like, when you go visit an archaeological site and there's like, in the Maya world, and there's like 12 pyramids, 12 giant pyramids, that is all that's cut off. Like, the trees are already cut off of there, and that's not affecting the weather patterns.
Yeah.
Think about how big that city actually is.
What's interesting is, like, where did all the wood go? So did they use, was a lot of their construction wood based?
Yes.
It's like stones and wood, right?
Yeah.
So how much of that we will never see, because it's just like
exactly, it's just dust now. A lot of their construction was wood. So like normal people would live in thatch wood homes, right? And only so necropoli or a necropolis is basically a place where, say I'm the prince and my father dies. Well, when he dies, the house that was like the palace that he lives on, which is, like a pyramid, he lives on the top of it with his thatch, home on top of it. I am now going to create a chamber where he lived and build a stone roof on top of it and build the pyramid over that, right? Now I'm going to live on top of my father. And then when I die, my son is going to build something on top of that. And it just goes up and up and up and up and up. And the pyramids get larger and larger and larger and larger with every generation. And so, that's
what I want to do with my kids one day. They're going to,
that's a really
live above me.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way of like passing on your legacy, because you're building these massive family legacies.
Yeah. And that's not that's not incorporated everywhere in the Maya world. Like the Maya world is just so vast, and they all do slightly different things. That's just something that was done in Copan and a whole bunch of other places too. But so Copan, they're also cutting down trees to create stucco. And so stucco is like this moldable plaster kind of thing that a lot of their hieroglyphs and sculptures are made out of. And it's a really weird thing. I don't know the science behind stucco, but it requires cutting down a ton of trees. And stucco is also used in the facing of the construction of buildings to make them look nice and flat. You know what I mean? And so around getting close to 800 AD, they had been using so much stucco. They had already destroyed their farmland. They had cut down so many trees. I mean, I can't even, guys. I'm talking about an ancient civilization cutting down so many trees that you can't see the trees beyond the horizon. And you look around, there's just no trees anywhere.
In a jungle,
and it's just pyramids everywhere. Like, imagine how big that civilization has to be to do that. So when you go see an archaeological site, and you're standing on one end, you're looking to the other end, you see like pyramid. Okay, here's the tree line. No, that's just like the main part of it that's excavated where the main dynastic families lived. The real city goes in all directions beyond the horizon. It just goes on forever. So they cut down so many trees that they changed their own weather patterns. So anyways, we see a bunch of things in Copan that kind of show that the city's kind of coming to an end. At 800 AD, poof, they're all gone. So, it's a little bit inexplicable. So I'll give you my theory as to what I think happened, because there is
and it's sudden. Is it?
It's just like that.
Just like that. Okay.
All of them at the same time. So here's my theory. What I think is happening is we're seeing political unrest all over the Maya world. We're always seeing that, but like it really gets intense from about 650 AD, and then it's at its height in the 700s, and then by 800 AD, poof, like all the cities are gone. So here's what I think is going on: is I think that as these divine god kings build these cities into these huge empire states, or these huge powerful city states. Well, what happens, let's say in capitalism, what happens to the guy who's in the center? everyone around him rises and rises and rises and gets more and more powerful. It's really good in the beginning, but it gets complicated later on, right? Because you have so many people who are powerful at this point. So now you have all the priests and the lords whose wealth is now becoming, comparable to the king himself. So what happens? All the lords and the priests start working together to try to figure out a way to kind of pull the power of the king down. Let's bring up ourselves. This same thing happens in Egypt, right? So so it's getting complicated now. And so I think that as political turmoil and war continues, the civilization starts resenting the king. They start resenting the guy on top who's making all the calls. So you're slowly seeing the importance of the king dwindle. Why can I say that with such confidence? Because around the late 700s AD, we start seeing hieroglyphs of the kings who had always been depicted stoically, like up on their temples by themselves, only depicted with other royalty, to now they're being depicted with common people on the hieroglyphs. So it's changing now. Now the kings are like, okay, so there's so much war going on in the Maya world. There's so much expenditure. Our civilization is kind of falling apart because we have been cutting down all of our trees and we've destroyed our weather patterns. Of course, they don't really know that. They just know something really bad is happening. So they start pretty much hearing out everybody. And so this idea of a council is kind of formed, or it's in its infancy, like the importance of having like a republic, in your government. A super powerful dictator king can be good for a little bit, but it just, it can't last forever. So this infancy of a republic is starting. And so it's growing and growing and growing. And so towards the end of the Star Wars, all of the Maya cities are now like financially destitute. They're broke. They've all spent all of their money. And now Teotihuacan, something happened to Teotihuacan. We don't really know. Around 400 BC, it started falling. And then by 800 AD, I'm sorry, around 400 AD, it's falling. Then around 800 AD, it's completely gone. Perhaps a different reason than the fall of the Maya world. But now Teotihuacan is not funding, these Maya cities. So now everyone's broke and nothing's really working. A lot of cities that don't have, flowing freshwater rivers have destroyed their water source. Some people have messed up their own farmland. It's just like the whole civilization is in disarray. And I think that the royal families and the normal people are now being seen collectively as much more important than any time previously in the last 1,000 to 2,000 years, because the kings really aren't cutting it anymore. These divine god kings aren't really cutting it. And so I think everybody knows that the civilization is kind of on its last leg and something new needs to happen. And they're just kind of waiting on a sign from God. And then all of a sudden the sky gets covered in black ash right at that time. Yeah. And that's the final straw. People know that this is a sign from their gods that man is not supposed to be worshipped like a god is supposed to be worshipped. So the Maya civilization as a whole, on the 10th Baktun, which is like a cycle of change every 400 years, the 10th Baktun or the 11th Baktun falls right on 800 AD as well. And these are times when the Maya people are supposed to look inward and do something new with their civilization. So all across the Maya world, they pick up, abandon their cities, basically drop their tools right where they stand, and they all migrate north into the Yucatan and create an entirely new civilization where they have divine councils and kind of like republics where people come together and work with each other, and they now exalt the gods above themselves. So much so that anytime that they build a temple or a pyramid, the inscriptions don't say such and such king who is so great built this temple, when really the workmen did it. They don't even say the workmen did it. They say that the gods built it. They're giving up everything because the civilization, it must have been so bad that it was ingrained in them that they do not need to be exalting themselves anymore.
You're saying they got red pilled and then they wanted to decide to be based. Yeah. They're like, let's just make a whole based society.
Yeah. Speaking of red pilled, I didn't mean to insinuate earlier that capitalism is bad. I just mean that when it's been going on for so long, it gets complicated because you have a lot of money at a certain point. You know what I mean?
Well, it stops being capitalism.
Say it again.
Well,
it stops being capitalism.
Exactly.
Like corporate oligarchy.
Takes over.
Yeah. So that's essentially what it is. And so that is my that's my personal theory, is that I think a volcano didn't end it, but it's interesting that it happened right at the end of the Maya civilization, and I think it was the final omen that was essentially like the gods do not approve of this 150-year Star War that you guys have been having with each other, or these 150-year Star Wars you've been having with each other. The sky is now covered in black, and all of these Maya villages and civilizations have just been incinerated, and Palenque is completely covered in ash. And so, that's kind of my theory for why.
That's a good theory. Real quick. There is I'm sorry if I trigger anybody. There's an AI that there's a YouTube has talked to me about this. There's like an AI. There's a thing we can sign up for now that will just automatically translate you into anything.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
What do you mean? What do you mean into anything?
It will
any other language?
It will audio translate, and it will translate into.
Adam's thinking like into a cat.
Into Klingon.
I don't want to be a trans.
Do
I turn into some kind of other?
They're working on. I think
that's cool though.
It's any language. Any language that it will.
It makes sense.
Yeah, I just need to sign up for it, so I will do it.
That's pretty cool.
Sorry. So more people, and they're really pushing it because they're like,
technology is crazy.
That will help YouTube grow if people can understand each other. It'll be it'll return us, and it'll be like
a Tower of Babel.
Tower of Babel. They should call it. They should call it the Tower of Babel. That's what they should. Maybe not.
It's kind of scary. Maybe we shouldn't do that. You know what?
Yeah.
Never mind. It's not a cool technology. I'm scared now.
We're backing up on that one. Yeah.
Babel AI.
That's brilliant, because I've never really heard that before, but it makes a lot of sense considering the location of that volcano, considering we know that it erupted.
And this is what your book's about?
No. My
you should write a book on this, man. Like this, it's a great secondary book.
Yeah.
Like,
it's in the back of my mind. So let's see, there's 3,500 people watching. None of you guys better steal any of my damn book ideas, because I'm about to start spilling some of them. So I have a bunch,
no, not at all.
I have a
get a pen.
I have a bunch of I have a bunch of book ideas that I want to do, because I think that's a good way to kind of complement like making YouTube videos about ancient history. Is writing some books about it, and I think that independent scholarship is going to just go up and up and up. Like, you guys have seen what's happened with the AI plagiarism thing. Where they're going to start going through colleges lately and basically auditing, all of these professors' papers, because there's so much plagiarism happening. And so I think that independent scholarship is going to grow and grow and grow. And a guy that I kind of working on modeling half of my career after is there's this guy called Told in Stones. Great channel on YouTube. But he just covers Roman history, but he's got 2 books that he's published, and they're just kind of fun, books that cover some really simple ideas about ancient Rome. And so I think that that's like a good path that I want to go down. So as Garrett was saying, we talked about this earlier before we went live. I'm working on a book right now that the title is kind of inspired by a chapter that I read in Fingerprints of the Gods back when I was 16. And the title is called the title of the chapter is called The Olmec Enigma. And it's essentially covering the origins of Mesoamerican civilization, of which I hadn't heard of at that time. And that really sparked my interest in Mesoamerica. And since then I took I took a traditional academic kind of route to really learn a lot about it. And so I kind of arrived at this place now where I have like the skeptic alternative point of view, but I was also trained, traditionally. So I kind of have this duality of sides, which I get a lot of heat for on Twitter. But anyways,
I think that's the future. We talk about that a lot, is the independent sphere in so many different areas other than academic is popping off right now. And I think right now you're a great example of that right now.
Well, thank you.
Is that perfect in between where you don't have this massive weight of all of the academic culture and all of that stuff, you can kind of do things that you want to do, and having like a means like that, like a book series that you could write for it, you could recoup that the cost of studying more, and then fund future projects. So yeah, that's great.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so that's kind of my goal. So the book is going to be called so the book is called the Olmec, or it's just gonna be called Olmec Enigma. So I'm just basically stealing the chapter title from Graham, and I'm making that my book. But the book is just gonna be about ancient Mesoamerica, and it's just gonna be like little, I'm aiming for about like 200-ish pages or so, but it's going to be like a toilet read. You know what I mean? You can open it up and you can read a few pages, close it back. And so, it's going to be covering all the mysteries of ancient Mesoamerica, the ideas of where they come from, the fringe ideas, the orthodox ideas. And so, what's Kang's? Yeah. So, and so that's kind of what I'm going for. And so that's a book idea that I'm working on right now. That's probably going to come out in the summertime, probably leading up to Cosmic Summit. And I think that like before the book drops, I might have a little booth at Cosmic Summit or something. But in all my books, I'm going to be fair, and there will be a part. It'll be more of, if I agree more with the orthodox explanation of things. What's funny is just like my education, where I read so much of Graham Hancock and these other guys growing up, and then now I really just read like more orthodox scientific books because I kind of understand the alternate points of view. But I'm just reading about so many different things right now. But I'm going to be fair in my books, and so I will essentially during the books I will give all of the explanations, orthodox to the craziest alternate ideas, and I'll also give my own ideas, which usually falls somewhere kind of in the middle. Like there's people who think that the Olmecs came from ancient Egyptians somehow. I don't really buy into that, but there are Orthodox academics who say that these 50-ton, before they're carved, 50-ton Olmec basalt monuments or basalt monuments that are being carried through the swamps were carried on balsa river rafts and like rolled through the jungle, which is BS. There's no way. There were there's an experiment that was done with a colleague of Dr. Edwin Barnhart, and so where this nautical engineer, he basically created a simulation of a balsa river raft on the in the Olmec rivers in Veracruz and Tabasco, Mexico. And he was basically like in the equation, you can plug in how big you want your balsa river raft versus how big your Olmec head is. And so when he made the river raft wider than the river, where it couldn't actually float down the river, and he put a 5-ton Olmec head on it, it sank the raft. Okay. The smallest Olmec head is 6 tons.
Wow.
So, yeah, a raft bigger than the river cannot carry Olmec head. That cannot carry the smallest Olmec head. The largest one is the La Cobada head, which is 42 tons. So there's something missing there. There's some kind of ancient technology, if you want to call it that, or some kind of feat of engineering that we're completely not aware of. It's very similar to the transportation of the red granite stones from Aswan in Upper Egypt to Giza in Lower Egypt. You have these 80-ton megalithic blocks that are being carried by riverboat, but it's these flimsy little riverboats. I'd love to see the process of them getting it from the shore onto the boat without sinking it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of similar mysteries. So I'm going to be fair in the books. So that's just my Olmec Enigma book. But I'm also working on a series called Last Days. And it's basically just going to be like a series of the fall of civilization. So there's going to be the last days of the Maya, the last days of Rome, the last days of Egypt. And
I like that.
And it's just going to be a series. And all my books are going to be like they're not going to be that long. They're going to be easy to read. You can pick it up and finish it in a couple days if you want to, or finish it in like 25 poops. And so that's kind of like,
poop read.
that's kind of what I'm shooting for.
Just something that sounds great for like a kid. So a way for a kid to get into all the
True.
things you're talking about.
It won't be written for kids. It'll be pretty in depth stuff. But I was reading. Like when I started reading Graham Hancock at 16, I had to
I'm thinking
I had to really focus on what I was reading. It gets pretty technical. So I'm gonna write it for I don't know, just anybody who's interested.
Adult.
Yeah.
So this is really interesting. I think it's not Monument 13. Which number monument is this? Anyways, the Monument
19.
I knew it was an odd number. Yeah. So this is found at La Venta. And so this right here is the very first representation. So this is something really cool that I'm going to talk about in the book also. This is the very first representation of Quetzalcoatl, which is Kukulkan also. So Quetzalcoatl is the feathered serpent that is worshipped by the Aztecs. The same god is worshipped by the Maya. He's called Kukulkan. We don't know what the Olmecs called him because the Olmecs exist from 1500 BC up until 300 BC, and they didn't have this. They had writing, but it wasn't as progressed as the Maya were. Like we can't read full sentences in Olmec script thus far. So what's really interesting is scroll down for just a second. Let me see if there's does it give a proposed date on here?
I can find it. Give me just a second.
Yeah, there's a lot of different dates for this for this monument. But so anyways, this is the very first time that we see
circa 1400 to 400. Yeah, that's somewhere in between 1,000 years BCE. Yeah.
So that's how little we know about the Olmec world. So here's what's really interesting. So basalt is pretty damn hard. It's hard to carve into basalt, and they're not just carving into the rock; they're carving the rock away to reveal, like epigraphic logos. Hieroglyph. I guess I'll just call this a hieroglyph, even though it's not. But they're carving it away to reveal a sculpture from underneath, right? But this is the very first time that we see this. So look at how aesthetically pleasing that serpent god is carved. How the hell does this happen?
It was the first time somebody tried it, and they were just really good.
Yeah, exactly. Now that's complete BS. So this is indicative to me that, and I think that artwork that has come this far, I mean, this takes generations and generations and generations to get to a point that it's this good. And we don't have any prototypes or stones that were discarded, like bad monuments. Of course, they probably, if they had a nice stone, they probably just repurposed it for something else. But this is the very first time that Quetzalcoatl is ever the iconic god of Mesoamerica is ever depicted, and he looks perfect. He's aesthetically perfect, And so that's really the Olmec enigma is you have a fully fledged civilization who introduces the god king premise to Mesoamerica. So it's disputed as to whether or not the Olmecs are the mother culture, because mother, means you give birth, like your culture birthed the other cultures. That's disputed in the Maya world because the first Maya city that we see that we really know of is El Mirador, and we don't see any Olmec influence there at all. But we do see Olmec influence in other cities where they have divine god kings. And then there are also Maya cities that create their own heads. So there are other huge basalt limestone heads in Mesoamerica that are not Olmec heads. So those really aren't super well known.
Do they look different?
A little bit different, yeah. Okay. At first glance, I mean, you could look up Maya Olmec head, but at first glance, if you've seen enough Olmec heads and you look up a Maya stone head, you're going to immediately tell a little bit of a difference. But you can tell that the Maya heads are inspired. So what's interesting is the very first time that Quetzalcoatl is depicted, it kind of looks like he is holding up a king of some kind, and that king, what's he holding? A handbag.
Handbag.
like you see in so many other cultures around the world.
Göbekli Tepe. There it is.
Oh, great. Göbekli Tepe. So I was going to mention this. Earlier, and then I'm just go down 6,000 different rabbit holes. So Göbekli Tepe is amazing, and it's always they always talk about the monumental carving that's there. Because there too, it's like sculpturesque, where they're peeling away the rock face and revealing the iconographic images essentially from beneath. It's sculpture, right?
Carving and relief.
Carving and relief, and
really effing difficult.
Really difficult. And so,
Chinese cave.
They are the Göbekli Tepe civilization is held in high esteem for their ability to do that. Well, the Olmecs are doing it too, to like a level of difficulty so far beyond Göbekli Tepe. It's amazing, and that's not to downplay Göbekli Tepe, because that was 9,500 BC, give or take. And, incredibly long time ago. But it's interesting that we see that same kind of iconographic imagery of these little bags at the top of that stela with the same sculpture type as we see in the Olmec world. How you explain that, I literally have no idea. I mean,
I was thinking about this earlier.
It's against your common sense. Like, sorry, not to cut you off, but it's against your immediate common sense to say that there's no connection. But we don't have the evidence of a connection. But man, it's bizarre, isn't it? Like, you look at those two things and you try to, see, there's a handbag there, and so you look at those two things, and your immediate thought is that they're connected. And as much as you research it, you can't find a connection. And so it's just one of those things that's so bizarre. Thus far, thus far we can't prove that they were connected, but it's just such similar imagery. And you have so many similar mysteries across the world. Yep. Is it one of those things where it's like ants, no matter where they are in the world, are always going to build an ant mound? You know what I mean? They're just the same species, so they're all going to do the same things. But this is just so specific, and the imagery is so similar. And you show in the other is it Assyrian relief, where he's holding the handbag and he has like a bracelet of some kind on,
like a watch.
Some people say
they look like watches.
If you go back down to the Olmec image, he also has some kind of bracelet on. If you look really, really closely around,
you can see it.
How bizarre is that?
Yeah, that's freaking. Okay, so either answer. I mean, it's just me, shooting the shit. But I think either answer is there's a mother civilization that this is just remnants from, or what Luke just said. We are programmed. We are programmed a certain way to where we're going to build our houses and our structures a certain way. When we achieve a certain point of civilization, we're going to start building pyramids, which to me suggests intelligent, a bit of an intelligent design there, a little bit of the architect. So either way, we'll probably never know the answer, but it's
a fascinating question.
It is a very fascinating question.
I will give my I'll give my thoughts on this. And I'm gonna get flamed on Twitter for this. I already know like those academic guys who say they're all going after all the grifters. They grift as hard as anybody else. They will.
Yeah, they do. They grift the state and they grift our tax money. Fuck them. Sorry, Luke.
And I'm telling you, dude, they're watching this live stream to take little clips and try to smear us. I swear it's happening. They nitpick the little tiniest things, but
clip this. That's gay.
I have always been open about the fact that I don't really let it bleed so much into my research. Like, I try to always be objective, but if we're just shooting the shit on a podcast, I'll be open about the fact that I am religious. I'm a Christian. I identify more with Greek Orthodox Christianity, like taking seriously the letters that Paul sent to the churches. And somehow I've done a good job in my brain of like disconnecting my anthropological studies from religion, because I don't know, that's just what I do. And generally that is considered good practice, right? You don't want to let those two things bleed.
That's a good practice as a human to not as much as you can, not have bias and be open to new ideas, no matter what.
Yeah. And so when I think about the fact that I do believe there's a creator, however, I don't think that God is as simple as like an old man on a cloud. I think it's a lot more similar to like the Force in Star Wars, where if there's it's kind of like the thing where it's like there's mind before there's matter. There was a mind before there was ever any kind of matter that existed. And so I think that mind, whatever it is, this purpose in all of the universe, I think it created everything. And so I think that kind of like Gary was saying is, and I could never prove it, but I think that there is a connection across all cultures of the world. And it's I would think that an answer to a lot of our questions is something that's immaterial. And I can't explain what that is. You know what I mean? It'd be like trying to explain the string theory to an ant. Like, the answer that I wish that I had is something that I can't comprehend. But simply put, I agree with Gary's second theory, is that I think that there's something that's connecting us. But then, I think about the Bible, and you're kind of going off rails a little bit here, but the Bible really alludes to it's kind of like like internal evidence. So you have external evidence in archaeology, and you have internal evidence. And I hope I'm not butchering this, but it's been a while since I took like Archaeology 101. But so you have internal evidence, and it's kind of what you can infer from the story of the Bible. And so when Cain killed Abel just outside of the Garden of Eden, which we assume was next to the Tigris and Euphrates River in the Middle East, when he killed Abel, he was banished from wherever it was that wherever he lived, and he was worried that people were going to kill him. Where are all these people? Where did they come from? And so if you kind of read between the lines in Genesis, it alludes to the fact that, like, if you read about like the first man and woman that are mentioned in the Bible, and there's all different, versions of different translations of the Bible that kind of give you a little bit different meanings. So people are going to disagree on this, but the first mention of Adam and Eve comes like a whole page and a half after the first mention of man and woman, because it's, God created man and woman. He told them to be fruitful and multiply across the earth. And then he talks about Adam later on. So it seems to be that the Bible is alluding to this idea that Adam was some kind of, some kind of important guy. And it said for him, no helper was found. And so God created a woman just for him, not necessarily the first woman, but just a woman for him. And so
almost like we're missing chapters, like it
certainly
skips.
Right. Certainly. And I should say that, am I really insinuating that the story of Adam and Eve actually happened the way it says in Genesis? I can't say that with a lot of confidence. You know what I mean? Because until you get to Moses, everything is kind of like, okay, did that really happen that way? Or is it more metaphorical? Because Jesus himself tells so many metaphors. You know what I mean? So if the Bible is the word of God, it's the word of Jesus. Jesus is very metaphorical, whatever. So anyways, and then he... Cain is sent out into the world, and God marks him to basically, tell other people that he can't be hurt. And then, you fast forward to Noah, who is living amongst these societies that God, the creator of the universe, thinks is so abhorrent that he has to essentially create a cataclysm to destroy them. Okay.
Yeah.
These aren't small ancient villages, performing witchcraft, and God thinks that this is so terrible he has to destroy the entire earth. It's insinuating that they are probably so far along, they're doing things that are so abhorrently evil that it has to be destroyed, right? So what is that little internal evidence? What can we infer from that? I don't know. Probably that it was a very large civilization that was really far along, doing a lot of terrible things, and it needed to be wiped out. Now, is that just the Christian Jewish telling of an ancient civilization? That's their version of it, Probably, the story of let's jump over to the story of Atlantis. So that comes from Plato in 300 BC. I think during the Hellenistic period in Greece. So this is just after the conquest of Alexander and Philip II of Macedon. And so you have this, you have these Greek city-states who their governments aren't behaving. I don't know where I got on this topic, but you have these city-states that aren't behaving very well. And so this is something that Plato, he's drawing from stories that he's heard, and he tells the story of Atlantis, which is essentially, it could be butchering this a little bit, but it's essentially that Plato's grandfather heard a story from his grandfather who
Solon.
Solon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if Solon was his like great grandfather, or if his great grandfather knew Solon and the story is passed down. It's one of the other. And so that sounds like it's a really distant connection, but it's not that distant. Like, imagine your grandpa telling you a story that his grandpa told him. That's just a hop, skip, and a jump away. It's not that far. And certainly the story might get twisted a little bit, but the overall idea of the story isn't going to change that much, presumably. So the story is essentially that Solon, who was either, an ancestor of Plato, or, was friends with somebody who was an ancestor of Plato, that Solon traveled to a city called Sais, Egypt, which is kind of an obscure city. And he went to the temple of, it's not the temple of Neferu, but somebody in the chat will say it's another word that begins with N. So he goes to I think it's the temple of, now it's going to bug me. But anyway, somebody can look it up and figure it out. But he goes into this ancient temple, and he's basically getting the histories of Egypt, kind of similar to what Herodotus does in 450 BC, who is also another Greek historian traveler. No, it's not Nefertiti's. Neith, the Temple of Neith. There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jonathan. The Temple of Neith. I always want to say Neferu, but I'm stupid. So anyways, so he goes in the Temple of Neith, and he hears the story of a civilization that was like a predecessor to ancient Egypt, or some kind of, maybe not a predecessor, but just an ancient civilization. And so what's interesting, or an ancient civilization whose their government was wicked, but the government is kind of like ominously similar to Greece at the time. And so it's an applicable story for Plato to tell at this time during the Hellenistic period. But at the same time, that story it sounds vaguely similar to the like apocalyptic story that we hear in the Bible, and that we also hear in the Epic of Gilgamesh, but it's also likely inspired by the fall of other civilizations. Like Minoan Crete was destroyed. I believe, I'm not an expert on Minoan Crete, but there's this idea of Minoan Atlantis, which existed some 700, 800, 900 years before the time of Plato. And so the Minoan society, I believe they lived on Crete, which is the big southern island in Greece. And so that was heavily populated during the Bronze Age. And so there was I believe a volcano that erupted, and it wiped out the Minoan society. And the Minoan society is thought to have had some of the similar problems that Atlantis is said to have had. So these stories of lost civilizations being destroyed by cataclysms is like so normal in ancient history. It's really hard to decipher. What I'm getting at is that I don't know the answer to all of these things, because these things happen so much throughout history. And the fall of Atlantis, if it really did happen, and nobody can prove if it actually did or not. But that same story has happened so many other times throughout history. And so, there's something that connects us all. There's some kind of similarity that we all have. But yeah, I didn't mean to go on that whole rabbit hole.
No,
but
it's all good.
I love it.
Yeah, I just thought,
so
there's a truth that connects us all.
yeah,
following Atlantis since I was like a kid, right? Back in the 70s, there was a huge Atlantis craze where a lot of people were more people were taking it seriously. Then there was that study from the late 70s that said it's all bullshit, and it kind of quieted it down for a while. And it's had this massive resurgence in some people taking it seriously. Not a lot of academics. They still think it's like a 4-letter word. But
I think it's likely
through Randall and Graham and so many others that and Ben from Uncharted X even brings it up once in a while. Like it's being discussed and that's good because I think there's enough anecdotal evidence to at least look into things. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all look into things because there is a lot of commonalities around the world and we just it wouldn't be a bad thing to figure that out. And I don't know why academia, that's always been the question we've asked on the show is I don't know why they're so scared of this. It's like more work for you. You know how much funding you would get from a bunch of rich people who are into the woo-woo shit that would absolutely donate to your trip and fund your stupid university. And I'm sorry, I'm not a fan.
Wouldn't it get you notoriety for discovering something new? And that's,
and it's more of what Luke is doing, what we're doing in pop culture, what Graham is doing, what so many heretics are doing, and this heresy is trying to find the truth, whatever it is, and asking, sometimes some out there questions because that's how you get to the truth. And what we're fighting is people who just want to keep their power. That's it. And it's you know what? You would still have your power if you just. For academia, this isn't for everybody in academia, but it's for the ones who are just so dogmatic. You would have more power if you were humble. You would have more power if you went, you know what? I got that one wrong, but let's look into this. More people would respect you.
Yeah,
it's so people get trapped in their own ego and hubris so much, and sometimes that's that. Unfortunately, that's what kind of powers our society is people through their ego and hubris unwilling to just say we were wrong, we fucked up. We can't see corporations doing that. Governments can no longer do that. Certain professors at certain universities can't do that anymore. If you just simply go, you know what, maybe I got that one wrong, you wouldn't lose your career. People would respect you. But that's where we're at. And these are supposedly the shapers of the world. The people who shape our world and who are the tastemakers and who run society are a bunch of pussies, basically. I mean, for lack of a better word, and it sucks that we're in this. And there's so much infighting, Luke, with everybody and all of these spaces, right? And it drives me nuts. It drives me effing nuts because it's bad enough that almost the entirety of academia is against what's considered basically independent research, and it just doesn't help with so much info. I mean, it's humans. It's gonna happen. It's
one of those things that connects us all.
One of those things.
I just want to be right.
Well, go on, Luke.
Oh, sorry not to cut you off.
All good.
Yeah, I'm receiving, and it's a blessing. It's some, I'm in the middle of getting a lot of heat right now on Twitter from a bunch of different academics. But what's funny is it's never the content of the things that I talk about. It's it's like the flair that I come at things with. You know what I mean? Because I obviously at the beginning, and I'm kind of coming into my own. It's like emulation and then innovation. So I emulated recreating the feeling of Indiana Jones when I first started making videos. That kind of just the aesthetic of things. Like I always wearing the jacket, this, that, and the other. Well, I'm getting a whole bunch of heat for that kind of stuff right now. And then there are people trying to nitpick apart all the research I'm doing and the sites that I've gone to. And everybody can go on Twitter right now. You can look at all these interactions I've had with academics teaching at Kentucky University or something, and so they're all just so heavily concerned with what I'm doing. and then they want to bicker and pick apart every single little thing that I'm doing, and I always have a rebuttal. And you know what's funny is they don't have anybody who's doing something like I'm not gonna say what I'm doing is like exceptional, but just something that's a bit out of the ordinary and that's getting some kind of attention. They do not like that at all. And I don't know if it's like they wish the attention was on them, or they're just bitter, or some kind of jaded academic or something.
Yes.
But they pick apart every single little thing that I do, and then they smear me with, let's use their terminology, misinformation, disinformation. You know, they have their own little words for literally everything. And so they smear me with misinformation. Like, I have literally never spoken about ancient civilizations and aliens in one thing. I think that every single ancient monument was created by a human being. I'm just putting it out there. I don't even consider aliens in the conversation. Anybody else can, and that's okay. I personally don't. But I get smeared all the time for thinking that, like, I'm not going to say any names, but there are big, well-known academics with tens of thousands of people on Twitter who, these people are so cowardice. I don't mean to get worked up, but these people are so cowardice.
Get worked up.
Thousands of people know who they are. Mm-hmm. They block me on Twitter, and then they go on my Twitter and select to view my posts, and then they repost my post and reply to them for thousands of other people to see. But I'm never notified about that, so I don't know that thousands of people are smearing me behind my back.
That's dirty.
It's disgusting. Like, these people are scum, you know?
First time, huh?
And
welcome to the club.
Oh yeah. Right.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, good. No, you get used to it, but it's weird coming from academics, some of whom probably haven't even gone to the places you have. And they've been sitting in their classroom, and it's they are threatened, Luke. Mm-hmm. They're threatened, and do your thing. Don't give a fuck what they think.
Exactly.
Screw them. And they went after, they called Graham a white supremacist, man. Graham Hancock. And if you know anything about the man, you don't even have to believe anything he's written. He's not, he is the furthest thing from that in the world. He doesn't even like government that much. I mean, I love Graham, but he's not like that. And just, I don't know, look who he's married to. That would probably answer that question.
Yeah.
So, oh man, dude, I saw one, and Graham and I, if we were having a discussion about things, we would disagree on stuff left and right. I really respect him, and I've got all of his books right here. And so, but I saw this academic who, these guys, like I said, they don't have anybody's best interest at heart. They have their own best interest at heart, and if you guys are ever on my Twitter and you see an academic like trying to pick in, like tear into me, just look up their Rate My Professor ratings online and read what their own students have.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Very trustworthy source.
I didn't know that. existed.
I loved using that.
Oh, dude, it's so good.
These professors extort their students and make their students pay like $199. They cannot buy used textbooks. They have to buy their professors' textbooks. So these guys are the textbook definition of a grifter. They're making any kind of buck that they can, and they don't have anybody's best interest at heart. Like, tons of academics, when I end up rebuttaling something that they had to say against me, and I should put this out there, I'm quote unquote an academic as well. I have a degree in anthropology. I went for school. I went to school for this. I study every single day. Like, I am a historian. And so effectively I'm a historian. I'm not actually an anthropologist. I have a degree in it, but I'm a historian. Anyways, I'm an academic as well. But you have this bizarre lane of people who, they tear into every single little nitpick thing that I do. And there's never like any when they don't have anything left to say to my rebuttals, there's never any like, oh, okay, I understand the misunderstanding. Well, best of luck to you. It's no response. It's silence. These people want to be the intellectual, like, epitome of everything, and they always have to be right. And if you go and look at their replies, these are, these are just like insanely, I'm blanking on the word right now, but they're insanely like sarcastic,
Petty.
What's
Petty, bitter.
Yeah, petty, bitter. There's another word like facetious type of people, who, like I saw a guy
Disingenuous,
like a troll.
Yeah, I don't know about a troll, but I put out a post the other day where I was basically explaining that I personally, from all the research that I've done, and I haven't been to Egypt
That's
yet.
it.
So
we got the term.
that's exactly right.
Farts.
So I haven't personally been to Egypt yet. So take my opinion with a grain of salt if you want to. But all the research that I have done leads me to believe that the old kingdom in Egypt did construct the pyramids by construction methods that we are not currently aware of. I do not buy the orthodox theory of that Zahi Hawass puts out of how they were constructed. I think that there is forms of lost technology, kind of similar to what Ben from Uncharted X talks about, that there were forms of lost technology and methodologies and techniques that were used to construct these ancient megalithic structures that we're currently not aware of. And so, I could dive into all of that. But I made a post about that. And there was somebody, and I basically just said, that I think that saying that they were tombs, that they were just tombs, is not doing the pyramids the correct service, because thus far nobody's been able to prove definitively what they are. There's a lot of evidence that points towards that. Yes, pharaohs' bodies were intended to be, if you look at all the pyramids, all 118 pyramids in ancient Egypt, all of them, but like 6 or 7 of them are absolutely tombs.
Yep.
But look at this great pyramid. So this is Khufu's pyramid. Then
you talked about this on the podcast too. You're like, there's no hieroglyphics. If somebody built this, if I built this, I'll put my name on every fucking brick.
Right.
Yeah, you'd be.
I paid for this.
Yeah,
right.
You would see it in the mortuary temples outside the pyramid. It's a really odd thing. So basically, what I was saying, that saying that they're just tombs is doing it a disservice, because you look at all the strange passages inside, the tunnels and chambers, and the grand gallery that's in the center. I think that there's another purpose to it. I don't know what it is. But I think that the king's chamber, that sarcophagus box that's in there, I haven't seen it in person, but I do know that it is bigger than the doorway that leads into the king's chamber. So like right in the center of it, I'm pointing at my screen like anybody can see it, but right in the center, there's a little passageway leading into. So that's the queen's chamber down there at the bottom, and then that's the king's chamber.
Okay, right here. Sorry.
And so that sarcophagus box that's in there is bigger than the doorway. So what does that mean? That when the chamber was constructed, that sarcophagi box was placed inside of the chamber. So it has been there as long as the pyramid has been there, right? Why there's no hieroglyphics anywhere or hieroglyphs anywhere inside of the king's chamber is really, really strange to me. But I think that there's enough evidence for me, just for me, nobody has to completely agree with me, but I think that, I think a burial is one aspect to this, because it's just one chamber. Look at all of the other chambers and labyrinths that are inside of the pyramid. What else is there? And they say that the queen's chamber, that Khufu's, the empress was going to be buried there, but there's no evidence of that. And I don't believe there's a sarcophagus in there. And it's thought that she was buried in the necropolis around Giza, around the pyramid. So I think that the pyramid has some other kind of purpose, whether there was some kind of, gatherings or like occultic, I don't know, occultic. I'm trying to think of the right word here.
Like a ceremony.
Yeah, like occultic ceremonies happening inside of the pyramid. What?
It seems to be very specific. The way it's laid out, like it's almost like an engineered.
You have
the rooms above each other.
Yeah, you have tunnels inside of the pyramid that come out of the king's chamber, and there's some that come out of the queen's chamber as well, and they go up almost outside of the pyramid, but they align with celestial bodies in the night sky. And so there's, astronomical alignments inside the pyramid. So, to say that they're just tombs is doing it a disservice. So like when I say that, I think that the pharaohs were being buried in there. and then I get people attacking me saying, well, what do you mean they're just tombs? I'm like, no, hold on. I think that there's a lot more going on as well. I think that the meaning, like the esoteric and, perhaps maybe some kind of functional purpose to the pyramids. I think there's something at play here. I can't prove what that is. But anyways, so there were people leaving comments, my own followers leaving comments disagreeing with me, which I do not argue with anybody that follows my stuff. I don't try to like correct people, I don't even have time to do that. I don't have the interest to correct anybody who disagrees with me, because you're on your own journey and ancient history is awesome. So, believe what you want to believe until you discover something that makes you believe differently. Yeah. But these academics who have me blocked go on my page and tear apart the people that follow me. And so I go on like on like my little anonymous, like my burner account, and I will read through my own posts and see these academics just tearing people apart, like tearing them down. I'm like, you're a professor at a university that's supposed to be cultivating enthusiasm around the ancient world, and you're just a dick, like these people are just scum. And I should say that I don't think that they're all like that, and maybe the majority are not, but there's a really, really loud percentage of them that it's got to be like politics. It's got to be half and half, and so there's a huge disproportionate percentage of them that are like narcissistic, egotistical. They want to be the end all be all harbinger of all knowledge. They are never wrong. And I'm like, I just really, really strongly disagree with that, because I don't think that, even when I'm in my 70s and I know a whole lot about a whole lot, I'm never going to be tearing down some 20-year-old who, doesn't know 1/100th about the Great Pyramids as I do. You know what I mean? I'm never going to tear them down and make them, them feel like an idiot, or, make them look bad, or block them and then retweet what they say and slander them for all of my followers to see and talk badly about them. Like, these people are scum. I'm sorry to get so worked up, but like,
no, you're right though.
Pisses me off, man.
Here.
They are destroying
children.
They're destroying their own reputations, like academics could easily turn all this around if they would just be nice, and so a lot of the people who are in the alt history world, like the Atlantis proponents, some of the things that they say, I am just like, I don't even know where that came from. I don't agree with you. I don't really know where it came from, and all the reading I've done and all the research I've done is kind of opposite of what you're saying. But go along your path. I'm not going to like interfere with people, and I don't do anything but encourage people, and so that's kind of where, I don't think that academia has to give, they don't have to immediately start teaching about Atlantis in school. But I mean, the way that they vehemently tear people down who are really just effectively enthusiasts online, like when they talk about like the dangers of pseudo archaeology,
they call it pseudo archaeology.
That's the stupidest.
No.
Now, I will say that when you have people who are like independent archaeologists, like there was a guy who just went out to Giza and he took a stone from Egypt. He took a stone from Giza back to his like hotel room, and he's like licking it and talking about it on Twitter or whatever.
That's just a crazy person.
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't be stealing something from an archaeological site to do your own
licking it.
Yeah. He's like, he's licking it.
He's doing his own research.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I made that sound. I didn't explain that properly. So what he's doing is he's licking it because the limestone at Giza is salty, and so he's trying. I think he's trying to prove that at one point it was the entire area was under like ocean saltwater. To kind of align with the cataclysm theory. And I'm not an expert on that. Maybe there was salt water that covered Giza at one point. I'm sure they're definitely, I should say, at the end of the Younger Dryas, there was definitely salt water covering Giza. Whether or not pyramids were there at the time, I can never definitively.
I've never licked limestone before, but it's
that
from the bottom of. I mean, it's formed being at the bottom of a giant body of water because it's a bunch of plants and I wouldn't be licking it because it's like that's ancient animal poop, dead bodies, and plants.
Yeah.
And how much are you really going to get out of that? How much information? I guess if it is salty or not.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's I don't know the specifics of that guy's research, but I just know that he is now being attacked by the Orthodox academics for being a pseudo archaeologist, as they call him, and that's really not a great look for like independent researchers. You shouldn't be stealing rocks from an archaeological site. Maybe not because you have particularly malicious intent. I guarantee he doesn't have malicious intent, but inspiring people to feel like they can do that themselves who don't know any better is,
and especially if you're not from Egypt and you do that in Egypt, they really frown upon it. Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
frown upon it so much so to the point
rightfully so
you're gonna be in a prison cell.
In an Egyptian jail. Have fun. I think a Tijuana jail is bad.
No thanks.
Could you imagine if somebody came over here and mess with our monuments and started taking stuff home? We'd be pissed.
Oh, imagine if they got really mad and they started ripping down statues. Oh, never mind.
No.
All right.
They would go, hold up, guys. Let's hear them out.
Yeah.
Let's hear them out. You don't like Thomas Jefferson's statue, but you're from whatever country you're from. Let's hear him out. He might have a point. Oh, he's right, guys. Let's not offend him. Let's let him tear down the statue. He can put up the Baphomet in Thomas Jefferson's place, though.
There you go.
Sorry, that'll be fine.
They want to put
that actually happened. I didn't just make that up.
That really happened.
What?
Yeah. They put up a statue of Satan instead of, I think it's Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
Really
going the right way. Hey, it's time for super chats, ladies and gentlemen of both genders. And Luke, that was awesome, dude.
That was great. Hey, before we get into it, could you suggest those books before the ones we talked about before?
All right. Yeah, I can show you guys how much of a bookworm I am. Okay, so all right. So a great little book series. It's 3 different books. To a lot of people's disappointment, it doesn't have anything to, well, it alludes to. It's going to be similar. My books are very inspired. Like the books I'm writing are very inspired by this. But it's a guy named Peter Tompkins who in the 70s and 80s, I believe, wrote a short series of books that basically compile a bunch of mysteries from the ancient world about a few different places. 2 of the books are about have to do with Egypt. One of them has to do with ancient Mexico and Central America. But this is kind of, it's not about Atlantis or about an ancient lost civilization that connected the world, but it's like an ancient mystery book. It's really, really nice. I'll show it to you. So for anybody who just in general likes ancient mysteries, these 3 are a must buy. So The Magic of the Obelisks. And so this book it essentially covers the origins of obelisks in ancient Egypt and how they end up in Rome. And it covers the importance of the obelisk and like the mysteries around the construction of the obelisk, because people don't realize it. But the erecting of an obelisk is really, really, really complicated. It's not easy to erect an obelisk at all. And when they were moving an obelisk, I don't mean to go off on a rabbit hole, but when they were moving an obelisk from Egypt to North America, they had to pull it on a lug boat across the Atlantic Ocean. And it was so heavy that when a storm came through, the chains that connected the towboat and the lug boat, or however that goes, snapped off, and Cleopatra's obelisk was floating in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and nobody knew where it was. And there were 6 men. There were 6 men who, I guess they went from the lug boat to the tugboat where the obelisk was on to make sure that the obelisk was preserved. And amidst the storm, they were washed off the boat, and none of them survived. And so eventually the British government ends up finding the obelisk, and they bring the U.S. is like, no, we want our obelisk back, so we pay them a bunch of money and we get the obelisk to New York, and the obelisk was so enormous that they could only move it 1 city block per day. So they're just barely moving it. I mean, so obelisks are an amazing mystery. If you like the pyramids, the obelisks are like the next step. And how they were erected is still a mystery. But it was done so much in the ancient world. The Romans erected way more obelisks than the Egyptians did. Nobody realizes that. And the Romans, as far as we know, it's not documented how they erected it. So they had this like advanced technique or technology of how to, erect these massive monuments, which aren't secured in anything. They're just balanced. So that's a whole great rabbit hole. The other one is this
is China. China.
Oh, that's cool.
Wow.
Cool.
That's cut out,
That
and
massive.
below it is okay. So this is another one.
Are those
It has-
trees?
Oh, dang.
Tiny trees?
Oh yeah. No, this thing. Okay, they're
Like
some
look down by the foot of it.
This
Are
was
those-
cut out, but some
I think
people
this is
say
a
it's
lot bigger.
natural,
It's huge.
but it's 16,000 tons.
Yeah, this is
Ah.
massive.
16,000 tons. Here's a smaller
Wow.
one, but the 16,000 ton does have these little things cut out in the
The
bottom.
notches
Well,
too.
and then-
And it's got
Yeah.
these
Weird.
giant notches. This is in China. And we're just like, this is
Oh.
still pretty new. There's still, a lot of actual work that needs to be done on it. But I would love to go, but I would have to go to China, and which I was just
Yeah.
not going to do. But yeah, it's pretty incredible. There was that giant stone that they brought from the desert to LA for some art exhibit. And,
Yeah.
and it-
Oh yeah,
and they put it on a fucking big old truck, and and it moved like 13 miles an hour, and it took like a
Yeah.
week to get there, and it was nothing compared to the obelisks and the stone of the pregnant woman in Baalbek, which is and then they found a bigger one, and then of course there's the foundation stones that you were talking about in Baalbek, which are on smaller stones. So somebody had to like lift them up and put them in place.
Yeah.
And it's you know what? Yes, I absolutely believe like humans did it. I just think they were differently advanced in a way that we probably just don't understand because we use cranes and machinery and leverage, and they had to use something else. So you were talking about the podcast, not the molds for stone, but there was a way to like soften stone or so not and able to shape it to make it to maybe explain some of the polygonal stone structures.
So there's briefly I'll share the rest of these books, but briefly there's a so in the Atacama deserts in northern Chile, there are Inca and Tiwanaku roads. Now, when I say Inca, I really just mean, your massive megalithic Peruvian roads. And we call them Inca roads because that's the culture that we attribute to the roads. Do I believe that the Inca created all of their megalithic monuments? I think that when we're talking about an ancient lost civilization that constructed huge megaliths, I think that ancient Peru is the number one candidate. Reason being, the Inca were around for just as long. Anybody can go research this. Okay. So the Inca were around for just as long as the Aztecs, about 150, 160 years. When you look at the amount of structures and cities that the Aztecs constructed, it looks about the amount that a 150-year-old civilization would do. They had a few major sites, some major pyramids, but really, not so much. When you look at the Inca, dude, they constructed as many cities, roads, and monuments as you would think 1,000-year-old civilization or 2,000-year-old civilization would. Way more structures and roads and cities, vastly more than the Old Kingdom in Egypt did. And so, that's a whole rabbit hole. But yeah, I think that certainly there's a lost civilization in Peru that might very well be responsible for, a lot of your megalithic sites like, Sacsayhuaman, Cusco, Machu Picchu, and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So anyways, they have these roads that are going down into the Atacama Desert. And so in the Atacama Desert, there are these like acidic deposits. It's this type of acid that can only be found in that area. And so this is kind of like a fringe of archaeological research. And I think that the research is kind of off and on because I don't think that this is funded by any type of university. And in Chile, this is the last thing that they're, allocating their funds to researching, as far as I know. But it's theorized that these acid deposits that are there are powerful enough to like soften basalt and potentially granite as well. And so it's theorized that these acid deposits were mined and carried through these Inca and Tiwanaku roads that they kind of lead down into the deserts and then just fade off. So they were going down in the deserts for some reason. And again, the theory is that they're mining these acid deposits. They bring them back up, and then they are able to soften the edges of granite stones and smooth them out. And they kind of they're like melting the bases of these rocks. And so but we still have to explain the mystery of how they even hoist the rocks, the stones up. But the sides are softened, so when they place them down, they may be rough, but then they go, and they flatten out and they're perfect. That's why you see, these kind of perfect masonry cuts. I think that maybe the ends of the rocks were softened, and so that pressure makes that perfect line.
Yeah.
So that is kind of a theory of how you see this perfect stone masonry, how you see like these perfect fine lines between the stones, and they all, these cyclopean and imperial stones that all fit perfectly together. But that's a whole rabbit hole. So that's really cool. That's in ancient Peru. The other book is Secrets of the Great Pyramid. Secrets of the Great Pyramid. You guys should definitely get this. It's really just kind of going through every aspect of just the Great Pyramid itself. And there's a whole book just to talk about the Great Pyramid. There's also 2 other pyramids there, and 3 more pyramids attempted to be built in a similar style that came before that. So there's an immense amount of mystery in Egypt as far as your Great Pyramids. And then Mysteries of the Mexican Pyramids is...
I'm getting both these books like tonight.
Yeah. So Mysteries of the Mexican Pyramids. This one is great. This is one of my favorite books ever. And just a compilation of a ton of ancient mysteries about ancient Mexico, from Maya to Teotihuacan, or to the Teotihuacan culture, El Tajín. I mean, there's just so much that's out there, guys. So this is a really good little series. Trying to see if there's anything else that I would like really recommend. God, I've got so much. Okay, a great series to anybody who's just like an enthusiast. And so I go to Half Price Books a lot, and so the type of book that you're going to find there is there's a really cool book series called Lost Civilizations, and it just gives you like a real nice, simple breakdown of some of the highlights of certain civilizations. So I'll show you one. Let's do... this is something I just got from Mexico. It's not real to anybody who's going to try to make it seem like...
Grave robber!
Yeah. We just talked about this.
Souvenir.
So let's see. Okay, let's do these two. So this is a really cool series. And so I'm kind of collecting them. I only have a few left.
Oh, those are like Time Life book series. There you go.
This is an amazing series. So The Search for El Dorado. This one is going to cover kind of what we talked about at the beginning of the episode and what we talked about last time. And then there's this one, Egypt, Land of Pharaohs. But it covers all of your primary ancient civilizations, And so, if you read through that whole series, you're going to have like a really pretty good understanding of all of your major civilizations in the ancient world and kind of how they play into each other. And so the books I just showed, that is those are some of the books that I read as my introductions and I still kind of read through them a little bit as my introductions into getting into ancient history. And not to bore you guys, but I'll show you one more that's kind of this stuff that I read now. Let me see.
That's like what I was looking for when I went to Half Price Books and I got the Atlas. Like I was looking for some like a comprehensive history of Egypt, and it was hard to find, which is weird because you'd think it'd be.
I will show you. I have one for that. Sorry, I'm grabbing. Let's see. All right. Let's run the gauntlet real fast. I just dropped and broke a little thing that I got in Mexico, but it's a little Olmec head that I brought back from Mexico.
No.
So it's handcrafted by local Maya people.
Oh, that's awesome.
Actually,
Bummer.
I have broken every single thing that I've ever brought back from Mexico. I have broken every single one.
And that's why you shouldn't take.
You notice
stuff.
I don't have like superhero statues in this room. I break them all. Like I can't have a single one.
Oh, here. Wow.
No, I'm terrible. I'm horribly clumsy. You probably shouldn't let me to your house.
I've been an explorer since I was like a little kid.
Oh, look at that.
I saw that behind me.
What was that like 2 years ago?
So,
Josh Kelsey dropping 20 and walking away. Josh.
Thanks, John.
Josh is
Thanks,
a Chad.
Josh.
Hail, Josh.
Okay, so not to bore you guys too much, but here's some really good reads if you really want a solid understanding of the ancient world, and then one that's like a really boring read. So the ancient Egyptians, this is written in the 1800s, their life and customs. This is anthropology, essentially. So you're not going to be getting the answer to all the great mysteries and all the little tidbits of different mysteries. But this is leading into a series of videos I'm about to make on my YouTube that are deep dives into the anthropology of the ancient world. So there's going to be I've got like 200 different video prompts, and I'm going to try to take my YouTube to like a whole other level this year, like putting out so much more content because I think I've got what I want to do figured out. But I'm going to be putting out videos of like a life of a peasant in ancient Egypt, life of a peasant in ancient
those
Rome.
videos.
And it's like breaking
type of
down
stuff.
what life would have been like. I have a video that's like could a normal person approach the emperor of Rome? And then breaking down like the societal details of ancient life, and breaking down were there gladiator arenas in ancient Egypt, that kind of thing. Really telling what life in the ancient world would have been like. I tried to go into the lost civilization, lost technology. I thought that's what people wanted to know, but guys like Ben and everything, they cover that so well. And I love anthropology, so I'm going to be diving into what life was like in the ancient world. I have a ton of these for the ancient Americas as well, but it's unfortunate that we just don't know as much, because I think I said this last time is that all those books were burned that gave us much more of an insight into what normal life was like.
Talked about all the gold they melted down too.
Dude,
like they had gold trees, and
makes me so mad.
Llamas and shit. The Spanish just came and melted it all down.
Yeah, in Cusco, they had the Garden of the Gods. And so the Inca, whether or not they did construct those megalithic monuments, they were master goldsmith. And so they had gardens with life-size trees, llamas, birds, bushes, where every single leaf was made out of gold. Like, imagine that.
And the Spanish took it all.
And they took all of it, and now it's like in our phones and in our
or at the bottom of the ocean. Adam has to go because it's his bedtime. He's been up for. I was trying to get him up 24 hours straight.
Oh man, I'm sorry, Adam.
No, it's okay. I'm not going to make it long. You guys keep talking. You guys are great. Scared. I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers, everyone.
Adam, love you, brother.
Bye.
Sleepyhead.
Yeah, I'll run through the rest of these. So the one I'm reading right now is Egypt, Greece, and Rome, Civilizations of the Ancient Mediterranean. I picked this up because nowadays when I'm going to pick up a book, like I used to just pick up any book that I saw because I needed to read whatever you know, like, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, I just needed to pick up anything. Now I pick up books that the table of contents is like indicative of anthropology, like what the life would have been like. So this one is a really good glimpse into what life was like just for normal people, which is what I'm reading about right now. So Garrett,
yeah,
this book just came out. It's from Toby Wilkinson. I'm going to try to have him. I'm starting up a podcast right now called Temple Talk, where I'm going to have like historians and archaeologists come on and we're just going to, you know, I don't know, shoot the shit about ancient history. It's going to be a casual talk show.
That'd be fun.
This is a great overview of ancient Egyptian civilization from 7,000 years ago up until maybe like Roman Egypt. Roman Egypt is pretty interesting. I think, I'm not sure exactly when Rome stopped controlling Egypt, but Roman Egypt is super interesting. And then the last one I'll show, super boring read, is basically field reports from the city of Yashilan. I think I talked about this last time. I talked about it on Danny Jones' podcast. And it's just essentially like the archaeological field reports of the discoveries that happened at Yashilan. And that's one of the cities that I plan to launch an expedition to, because I'm about 99% sure that only one little part of that city has been excavated, and that the last time somebody explored, somebody with archaeological purposes went and explored the surrounding area was like 1908. And and he discovered the foothills of more temples, but didn't go further for some reason.
It's about time.
Yeah, so I'm going to go out there I'm either going to go out there in 2 months, or I'm going to go out there like late this year and explore the rest of it. So that's kind of what I read nowadays.
All right, thanks, man. Yeah, I really want something I can like read from cover to cover, and it's basically the whole timeline. That sounds great.
My shopping cart,
and that's the kind of stuff I kind of get more interested in. That is the day to day, and less of like the very technical timeline stuff, but what
when
it was
you're not
really
thinking
like
about the Roman Empire. Is that?
Yeah,
obviously.
Yeah. That's kind of I think that's kind of where I'm going to end up going, because that's really what I study. You know, I that's what my degree was in. I love just the life of normal people and trying to pick apart, you know, what are the little things that we know about, you know, some like a peasant living in the slums of outside of Alexandria. So Alexandria is the late port city of it's the late Greek port city of ancient Egypt, and a lot of wealth going on there, but there's also slums on the outside of the city. Well, during the time of Roman Egypt, we have some sources that tell us about how slummy it was and what life would have been like. So I'm going to start making videos like diving into what life in the ancient world would have been like. So I'm really excited about that.
I look forward
bottom
to
of Rome, of Egypt.
Yes.
Yep. All right. Time to get to the soups. Thanks for waiting, ladies and gentlemen of both genders. Hope Adam's already asleep. Bigfoot. God, Bigfoot's always super chatting. Obviously he exists, and he's got an income somehow.
And an internet connection
on the street, and an internet connection. I heard it's pretty good too. Not bad for Northern California out there in the middle of the forest. For $25, says a Bigfoot researcher left me some more apples today on a log. Apples, nice. All the things to leave me. Apples. Newsflash, bro. Would it kill you to leave me a Whopper with cheese next time? If you walk these woods, don't be cheap bastard, okay? All right.
Wow, you're picky.
Okay,
God, you are, man.
Yeah.
Look at a gift horse in the mouth, Bigfoot. Whatever. Thanks for the super chat, though.
I imagine it's harder to get a Big Mac or a Whopper
than an apple.
Than an apple.
Probably.
So, I get it. I get it.
Have you had a Big Mac or a Whopper lately? You'd rather have an apple, Bigfoot.
Yeah.
You would.
Make you feel better?
WG has gifted 5 Nerdrotic Live memberships with $25. Hail WG. WG. William 101 gifted 10 Nerdrotic Live memberships for $50. Yay. Thank you, William. Zorbu. Luke Zorbu is our resident alien who likes to probe Garrett usually often.
Well,
I don't know why I'm
might
the
have
target.
changed.
I don't
They
know.
might have changed their mind.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Zorba, leave me alone.
On the Streamlabs side for $25 says, got to clear the air here. Some punk has been spreading rumors that Zorbu and crew were on the Epstein Island list. Not true. Yes, I'm looking at Quarter Dark Human. Hate post all you want, dude, but we don't probe you anymore. But our lawyers will be in touch. Oh, wow. Space lawyers. You're screwed.
Wow. You lied to me.
He's not screwed anymore.
That is all about me. How dare you, Zorbu?
Neil Horn for $20 said, I've heard it theorized that the late Pleistocene predators in North America prevented or delayed humans from migrating south into South America. If that is true, then where did all of the people come from to populate those areas? Well, that's a good question. There's some DNA evidence that says that they might have not all come down the ice corridor. So,
yeah, certainly not. I'll go into that for a second. So the I guess he's saying the North American predator species or your megafauna prior to the late Pleistocene. So the late Pleistocene is right before the Younger Dryas. After the Younger Dryas, you're in the early Holocene, I believe. Yep. And so you have these giant species of like, you've got your short-faced bear, which is the scariest one. A giant bear like twice the size of a polar bear, existing in the Bering Strait. And then you've got your or is it the Strait of Gibraltar? Strait of Gibraltar is Spain. So yeah, Bering Strait. I'm sorry. So you have your short-faced bear, you have your dire wolves, you have your saber-toothed cats, you have a whole lot of other major species, and it's a commonly thought theory that it kind of put migration from Asia down to North America on pause. But more and more we're knowing that no, I mean there were certainly people getting through there. Maybe it placed a delay on major migration, but there were certainly people getting through. We're finding tools from like 150,000 years ago in North America. There are caves in southeastern Brazil near the Atlantic coast that they're finding caves with campsites that have firewood that are 30,000 years old or soot that's 30,000 years old. So there's all kinds of evidence that people are getting here. Now, were they just coming down the Bering Strait? No, of course not. There were people coming from Indonesia that were sailing across the ocean. So you had nautical astronomers that were coming from Indonesia that were following the stars. And so I'm not an expert, but there was something apocalyptic, happening in Indonesia at the time that was causing a mass exodus of people. And so it's thought that, or it's interpreted that for whatever reason, people needed to move east from Indonesia, but you just have these like little islands that they're hopping to. But then, so what they think happened was certainly, all ancient civilizations that were seafaring used stars to help themselves navigate. They all had to be astronomers. So what they theorized that inspired these insanely ballsy Indonesian people to sail across the Pacific and eventually reach Easter Island in South America was that there were hordes of birds leaving Indonesia and flying into the middle of the ocean. So they knew there was land out there just beyond the horizon. So they're following these packs of birds through the ocean. And, presumably they reach Hawaii, but, they didn't reach. I don't think that we have evidence of human population in Hawaii until like within the last 1,000 years. But certainly the evidence of people being from Australia in South America goes back further than 1,000 years. So it's really like a dark age of human history. We don't really know how people got across, but I think that tons of people made it across the oceans to get here. And I think as time goes on and as genetic research continues, we're going to see more and more and more and more and more people that made their way here.
I think it's way more likely that there be people before.
The ocean
seems kind of weird to think nobody ever did.
Well, the ocean was 400 feet lower at one point in time, too. I mean, that's going pretty far back, but I think the ocean's rising possibly relatively quickly would be alarming and apocalyptic, whatever caused it. Whatever caused the Younger Dryas. That would be pretty crazy. There's a lot of land that's underwater that wasn't. I think what did Randall say? It was the size of China and Europe. That's how much land has been covered up by water. Don't quote me on that. But it's a huge swath of land collectively around the world. Dragonsworn for $20. Current estimates are that there were about 90 to 112 million people in North and South America in 1491, approximately 50 million people in Europe at the same time.
Yep.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, I didn't say that. But yeah, it's estimated that just over 100 million Native Americans were around in 1492, and more than 95% of all of them were killed.
Wow.
Yeah, were killed due to disease. Crazy, man. And the Maya civilization, playing into at the very beginning, when I was saying how colossal it is. So I personally think that the population and that the size of civilization as a whole is vastly underestimated. But it being underestimated, where it's currently estimated, is 3 times the size of medieval Europe at its height.
Jeez.
And I think that that's underestimating how big it was.
Yeah.
Hayden 75 for 50. Hayden. Thanks for being on tonight, Luke. I love when you're here because we get this chance to hear all of these stories and history from a man who has actually explored these places and dug up the history. I always want the episode to keep going. Hail, Forbidden Frontier. Hail, Hayden. I don't know if you're out there working. Thanks, brother.
Thank you very much.
Hayden's
Thank
good
you.
dude.
Thank you very much.
Hope to see you again someday, Hayden. Maybe back in Vegas. Vegas, baby. WG for $20. Thank you, WG. Says, great show again, folks. Thanks, Luke, for your expertise. See you all at the Cosmic Summit. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Cosmic Summit's great, man. That was such a good event. Like,
That was
That
cool.
was fun.
man, that was so cool. You know, Gary, I didn't even know exactly. I didn't understand the magnitude of how big your channel was when we met that day. Like, I kind of knew. And one of my close friends watches you, and I told him today. I told him today that I was going to your podcast, and I guess we had never talked about it. He goes, "What? You're going on that podcast?" And I was like, yeah, man. I was like, Gary and I are cool. But when I walked up to your booth, I didn't understand just how big your channel was. I had seen it pop up in my feed and watched some of your takes on pop culture media. And so I had kind of seen some of your videos, and then like that next week, when I knew that I was going to be coming on the show at some point, I started looking at your channel, and then I was like, "Whoa, your channel is huge, man!" But yeah, I just thought that was funny. Like I walked up to you, but I didn't have any idea how big your channel was at the time.
I try not to let it think about it too much. I don't want to be
just
on
a
my
dude.
channels.
He's very like,
yeah.
it's one of the good things about him.
Thanks, X-Ray girl. That's
You're
a nice
welcome.
thing to say.
Yeah, well, and I think
I'm
that
just an idiot.
Well, I wasn't going to say that, but
True. It's so true.
Yeah,
But no, I was in awe of all the people who were there. Like, it was like, usually, this wasn't a Comic-Con. This was my other big, huge hobby that I've done all my life. And just seeing all those people there, seeing you there, dude, no shit, not blowing any smoke. You had the best presentation. Ben was fucking great too. Randall was great and went on and on and on and on and on. He went forever. It was great. But like you were, I will say the biggest surprise. I'm like, oh, let's listen to this little Luke kid. Let's see what he's got to say. Absolutely, like wow. He totally
we were sitting at the row of tables, and there'd be people talking, and at first we'd like lean in, and then we might start talking to each other or something. But yours, we were all just silent, just watching. Like I looked back, and everybody was just
because it's something new.
Stuck on it. It was great.
Like you said, each you guys have your thing. Ben's thing is fucking awesome. I'll watch his videos over and over again, getting into those vases that are found in basically tombs or graves of pre-dynastic people who are primitive. Like the base doesn't match like what else was with the body. That's fascinating. But when you were hitting something cool that like Graham had just barely touched on because he's a busy guy. But you're like, no, lost cities in the jungle. And I love how you're like, when you were pointing out, you're like, this one city is like just 10 miles in. Nobody's gone 100 miles in. Nobody's gone 50 miles in. And there could be hundreds. We don't know. We have no idea. But we're getting close to knowing. That's why the ancient civilizations field is the most exciting, because technology is now pushed forward to enough where we're going to be able to pretty soon be able to scan the deserts of Africa. I mean, like, how much shit is under the Sahara Desert, like, that we don't know about?
Very tremendous amount. I am not I'm not a wrist shot structure proponent for Atlantis. However, I'm interested in going out there. I tried to book a trip like next month to go, but there was a lot of unexpected expenses that made it like 4 times as expensive, so I couldn't go. But I was doing research, and there's a culture called the Tishit, or the Tishite culture, that actually did exist near the Rishat structure about 5,500 years ago. When is 5,500 years ago? Exactly the same time as pre-dynastic Egypt, and they're a really similar kind of civilization. And
the environment would have been a lot different 5,500 years ago.
It would have been a lot less dry, but it was getting dry. It
was getting dry.
And so that's on the western side of the Sahara, and then you have Upper Egypt, which is where that's kind of where pre-dynastic Egypt begins. That's where those vases are found, near Aswan, Egypt. And so very similar environments all the way across the Sahara from each other, but we don't know we know of hardly anything that's in between those areas. And so when they have when ground penetrating radar becomes a lot more affordable, which it will be just probably within the next decade, they're just going to fly over that area and be able to scan everything. I mean, this is what'll happen.
That's exciting.
Is when that technology is done really, really well. And I don't know if it's going to be satellite. I don't know if it's going to be by plane. But when it's perfected and it's affordable, it's going to be like that. We're gonna have mapped the whole Amazon in like a year. Whole Sahara
that's
Desert
gonna be crazy.
And
that's gonna be absolutely crazy.
Very cool.
Explode.
Then we got to go to Mars.
Excited.
Then we got to go to Mars with it. Next,
there'll be an immediate.
Go to the moon. Do Mars.
Mars. Yeah.
Yep.
No, I think it's just a matter of time for that to happen. And they've already found buried cities. Some of them just from fucking Google Earth, right? Like Google Earth changed. That's another thing that's kind of pushed this field up, is just stupid Google Earth, and people like me and many others who do it way more autistically than me. Just, I got a couple hours to kill. I'm going to go over Google Earth. I'm going to go check out places I'd probably never go to. I mean, like the Rakat structure, the Eye of the Sahara, it's in Mauritania Mauritania. Not the safest country in the world.
Safer than Libya.
Yes. And right now you're right. And, there was it wasn't too long ago where you just flat out couldn't go there. Now you can. And they probably recognize that, like, hey, we can make a few bucks off this Rakat structure. Let's do it. Which is great.
Yeah, they have Atlantis. They have Atlantis tours now.
That's awesome. That's great.
I
love it. Capitalism.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily, like I was saying, I don't think that the wrist shot was Atlantis. But dude, that's so cool that they have little tours, Atlantis tours. And so, you go and they give you the ancient history around Mauritania, or of Mauritania. You get to see more than just the wrist shot. And then they take you to a city called Wadane, Oadane. And it's the city that's nearest to the wrist shot. And so you get to go to Wadane, and you get to see the ruins around Wadane, and you get to hear the history of that. And then they take you out for 2 days and they have like a caravan of trucks that go out there, because if you get a flat tire, you're dead. Like it's a full day drive to the end of the wrist shot, and then a full day drive back. And then you get to camp out there up on top of these cliffs underneath the stars. Dude, imagine what the stars look like.
Oh, that'd be great.
That would be
no light pollution at all.
That'd be so cool.
I'm a big fan of Grand Tour and Top Gear. The next special is going to be in Mauritania. The next special they're doing, it's coming out in February. Yeah. So it must be safer to go there if they could go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very tolerant of Africa is not the safest place for Caucasian people right now. And Mauritania is very, very tolerant of like Westerners to come and visit. And it's one of the safer places in North Africa. I know that.
I wouldn't go to Yemen right now. That'd probably not be a good idea.
Yeah. And
Probably.
even Morocco,
Africa.
it isn't the greatest place to go right now.
Oh, that's it used to be fine. Yeah, but when our country messes with everybody else's politics, they tend to get pissed off. I do understand that.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at all the people who lived on the fringes of the Roman Empire. That was ultimately the end of Rome. You know, they keep, and that's how empires work. Like the U.S. is essentially an empire. You twist the politics of the people on the fringe of your empire to build your own self up and sustain yourself, but you live by the sword, you die by the sword.
Yep. Yeah. Hayden 75 for $20 says, Luke, if you're looking at Roman history right now, I'd like to recommend a book for you, The Storm Before the Storm by Mike Duncan. It tells the story of the issues that started happening in Rome that started the collapse.
Yeah, I need to read that. I saw your comment actually the moment it came up. Yeah, thank you for that. I'm gonna go check that out. The Rome is really interesting, and it's kind of been on the peripheral of my research for a really long time. And when I decided that I was going to get into making anthropology videos, which is what I've studied so much of the last several years that I haven't really dived into in my videos. Well, Rome is a gold mine for that, because we have so many sources, written in Latin, preserved of what life was like during that time. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna order that book like tonight or tomorrow or something. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're muted.
Oh.
I muted myself because I was burping. You didn't want to hear that.
Oh.
Curtis. Okay, I'm fasting. So you're all food privileged, so screw you.
Well, I feel the same right now. My head is really light, and I'm like, I'm so hungry.
Yeah, I get to eat tomorrow. I get to eat tomorrow.
I mean, I'll eat.
Holy crap, man! The gym was brutal.
Yeah,
I was gonna die in there.
How long have you been doing it?
This is day 3. So in 3 days, I've had.
Anytime I've done it, day 3 is so hard.
I've had a handful of almonds.
Do you want me to read?
No, I got this. I got this. We're going to be good. I'm fine. I drank a lot of coffee. Curtis Bartel has gifted 5 Nerdrotic Live memberships for $25. But thank you, X-Ray Girl. I appreciate that. Early Berm. By the way, again, Curtis Bartel, thank you for gifting 5 Nerdrotic Live memberships. We appreciate you. Early Berm for $20. What if the king died first and they made the queen live there with him, but she moved out before her death? I wonder what that's in reference to. I can't remember.
The Queen's Chambers?
Oh, the Queen's Chamber, yeah.
Oh, okay. Reread that.
Why it wouldn't be...
What if the king died first and they made the queen live in there with him, but she moved out before his death?
Damn.
What if they just killed the queen with the king? When he died, she died.
Hey, that's not that bad of a theory. It's like, hey, lady, we got to close this thing up. Your husband.
We need you in there as well.
Till death do you part.
Yeah.
Unless you want to stay together.
Hey, that's really not that bad of a theory. Like I can actually see that happening because the original idea is that these funerary structures, like the pyramids, get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger because since the beginning of time, or the beginning of funerary monuments in Egypt, they're constantly getting broke into. So that's the theory. That's the tomb theory behind why they get bigger and bigger and bigger. So when the king dies, I mean, a lot of times when royal people in Egypt die, they're their servants and some of their close family members that they want to be buried with them, their time's up too. You know?
Yeah.
So
I
remember that.
The slaves get the slaves, the favored slaves get killed in some cultures. Not, I don't know particularly about Egypt, but
yes, in Egypt there were God, there's a word for it. There were slaves. There weren't slaves in Egypt in the way that we interpret slaves, but there were people who kind of sold themselves into like a servant job to. They're like priests for royal people, essentially, and so they essentially give up their mortal life to be given immortal life, because only certain people in ancient Egypt could live in the next world. And so you give up this life to be a servant for this royal person, and when they die, you're buried with them, but you are granted eternal life. So that's really not that bad of an idea. Like, that's not something that we can necessarily prove. But potentially during the time of the pyramids, if the god king dies, maybe the wife has got to go at the same time. So that's kind of interesting. But I don't think she would have lived inside of the pyramid. They definitely had palaces, I don't know.
Yeah. Foxy Scorpio for $49.99. Thank you. A single pair of draft horses can pull 50 tons. No need for extraordinary technology. I mean, except if it's 16,000 tons or 150 tons. I don't know about that. I don't know what horses can pull, but can the horses lift it?
Probably not.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Typically not. And another problem with that is read that to me one more time.
It says a single pair of draft horses can pull 50 tons. No need for extraordinary technology.
Pull 50 tons on what though? Because
on wheels, likely.
Maybe.
I'm assuming that they mean. I'm assuming that he's talking about in ancient Egypt, but it takes a little while for us to see the remnants of horses being used that commonly in Egypt. Even when you see ancient Egyptians with like camels, that's a common depiction. They didn't have camels for a long time. During the time of the Old Kingdom, when the pyramids are supposedly built, they weren't using, they weren't riding around on camels. They were walking everywhere they went. And so, and we also have no evidence of them. They knew about the wheel, but they didn't use the wheel to
use the wheel. That's right.
So the Egyptians are pulling these massive monuments on what? Sleds? Well, sleds, that's tough because
there's still friction there too.
It's hard to slide a sled on sand because you're gonna the friction makes it really possible to not impossible. It makes it really difficult to move monuments a far distance. It is possible. We have these inscriptions of them moving it's not a Colossus statue, but it's kind of in the vein of a Colossus statue, but it's a smaller statue. And so they're moving it on a sled, and there's somebody on top of the sled pouring water in front of it to decrease the friction. But there isn't any evidence that like the megaliths that came from Aswan that are, that the King's Chamber is made out of, like the 80-ton columns that are on top.
That had to go up. I'm sorry, was it a couple hundred feet? 300 feet or something like that, or maybe
okay, so the pyramid
700 feet about, right? The pyramid.
No, and they talk about the ramps. If you built a ramp, it would be so
feet. What was it? How long? Sorry,
because like you would imagine if you want to build something up to a next level, you'd have to build a dirt or stone ramp up so you could drag it up with the horses.
How tall is the Great
455 feet.
Yeah, so it would be half as tall as that.
So it'd have to go 250 feet up in the air. And Graham talked about it, the math that was done. If they were doing it just by a bunch of guys in loincloths with bare feet just dragging it or using oxen or whatever, it would have to be a ramp of a quarter-mile long. Yeah. And then you'd have to get these stones on the ramp, get them all the way up. Where did the ramp go? Yeah, there's a lot of questions.
And the ramp would need to be the ramp would need to be almost as strong as the pyramid to support all of that. And then that would essentially just become part of the monument. Like, have you guys ever seen a ziggurat before?
Yep.
Where you have this very prominent staircase that comes down from this pyramidal type structure with a platform on top. It would have looked something similar to that, but with a not as steep of a staircase. So I don't think that explaining the I don't think that the use of that's a ziggurat. So you see that prominent staircase, but those don't use blocks that are nearly as megalithic as what you see in the old kingdom of Egypt. So it's the fact that they had horses just doesn't easily explain the movement of these megalithic stones.
It's an interesting thought, though.
Brent Wolf for $50. Thank you, Brent. Isn't satellite radar finding a lot of stuff in the Sahara already? Yes, but that's still expensive to use. What we're looking for is independent researchers who could book a plane, basically, and fly, or maybe even use of drones in certain circumstances to map the whole damn thing. But yes, they are, and that's how they found some stuff. There is tons of stuff under the sand of the Sahara, like good entire cities are under.
Like to give an idea of just how expensive LiDAR would be, and I'm not sure that not an expert on LiDAR, but I'm not sure that LiDAR that's like used in the jungle is the same kind of technology that would be used. It's some kind of different radar.
It would have to be, I would think. But
maybe it would be some kind of different technology, but in the same vein. So we could just call it LiDAR. But just to map the ruins of a city in the jungle, in the jungles of Central America, Southern Mexico, or the Amazon, just to map a city, you're looking at like 30 to 50 grand. So you're talking about a blip in a massive jungle. So, to be able to map the entire Sahara Desert, there isn't enough money to do that.
There isn't enough money yet, but like you said, the way technology advances, you're right. Like within a decade, there'll be home LiDAR kits. So, plane-based GPR will change the dynamic just as plane-based LiDAR. You're right. Thank you, Brent. Jim Baldry for $50 says, I am an audio mixer for TV shows that talk a lot about these topics. It's nice to hear additional takes in a longer format than TV that either back up or challenge things that I hear on a weekly basis. Great job. Oh, that sounds like a fun job, dude. Thanks, Jim.
An editor.
Yeah.
What's up?
Cool. Audio mixing into that. No, that's a good gig. Hold on to that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like for History Channel or something like that. Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Editing like or even for crazy ass Gaia. That would be a fun job too.
Yeah, I
was watching Ancient Civilizations. I'm like, I can do all this.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, I can do all this.
I was at my parents' house and we were watching a history show. It was on BBC, and I was like, I could have edited this so much better. I was like, that's a bad transition. Same thing.
You know what I hate about some ancient history shows is when they do the and they still do it today. They've been doing this for like 20 years. Is when they do the insanely unrealistic high-tech animation transitions.
Yeah.
When it shows the map and it goes.
Oh
yeah.
You have the descriptions of things. So you have all these like geometric patterns that are showing up, like some kind of like year 3000 type technology.
Yeah.
And then so when the words show up, it's
dude.
It's just so
a lot.
Like it turns into a sci-fi thing.
Editors get bored. They go a little. I mean, I was using After Effects. They're using something completely different now. But people used to just go so fucking nuts with After Effects. It's like, bro, wipe. Do a George Lucas wipe. That's all you need to do. Simple. Less is more. God, just
throw a fade in every once in a while.
I should include some
Cut
Star
on
Wars
the action
transitions in my video.
Yeah. Dude, do it. Wipe.
That would be
Do it.
I'm gonna do that just
a
because.
Map. If you do that kind of stuff, Show a map like Indiana Jones did. It's
like
smart.
Indiana Jones and the line going. That's
that to make that look good is more complicated than those cheesy sci-fi.
Yeah,
that is
you can do it.
Expert level video, video editing.
I think Perry could do it. I think Garrett
we could do it. Yeah. We could do it.
Yeah.
Paulo, the Italian guy, for 10
challenge me.
pesos. Paulo, what's up, brother? Good evening, everyone. Have you seen the Carthaginian coin that seems to depict NA or Na? Is it Na or NA? North Africa? North America?
I asked and he never replied.
It shows Europe, Asia. It must be North America. I think it's North America. It depicts North America. It shows Europe, Asia, North Africa, and then a landmass to the west. Even my professor found it interesting. They knew America was here. A lot of people knew America was here. And I think a lot of them just couldn't get to it, and it's like, why will we go over there? I heard you get killed if you go over there.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that, but I should look into that. I should say that there are Phoenician sources that say that the Phoenicians who sailed a bit too far west out of the Strait of Gibraltar, there were some who went missing, and there were some that came back, and their goal was to sail all the way around the coast of Africa, in either back or through the Red Sea, or possibly up through the Nile, and back through the Mediterranean back to Lebanon. And so some Phoenician boats came back and said that they found like a major island out to the west, but what that island is, I'm not 100% sure. If it's the where is it that Randall
Azores?
The Azores. Golly, I don't know why I couldn't think of that. Some people speculate that the Azores. Some people speculate Newfoundland, Greenland, Iceland, maybe North America. But I mean, I think that certainly there were expeditions, and a lot of people found the Americas. I guarantee it. Whether or not they were able to get back where they came from, is a whole other.
I think that's where a lot of it gets hung. I bet you some Chinese made it.
Yeah.
Who knows? They just couldn't get back.
Yeah.
So they just died or assimilated into a culture, and maybe someday we'll find a hint of DNA, and it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Well, look at how ravaged Europeans were just getting across the Atlantic Ocean to get here.
Right, yeah.
By the time they all got here, they were all famished. They had no water. They were only drinking rum by the time they got here. Almost none of the Africans that were carried over here made it. Like surviving on a boat in the middle of the ocean is next to impossible. So going back when you're in a foreign hostile land, it's just not very possible that you're going to be able to make it home.
Nope. Aaron Bacon for £2 V6. Dare I ask what happened in Miami? Aliens?
Oh yeah, that video. The mall.
Yeah, it was a bunch of kids fighting. I saw that.
Why did they have so many cops though? That is the question. It's like it's just a whole road.
It got reported as a shooting, in the mall, so they
thought it was active.
Yeah, they thought it was an active shooter, and they
really responded.
Responded. That was like the entire fucking police department.
Which is a good sign, I guess, right? If something bad happens.
Yep. Shaggy Rogers book reviews for $4.99 says listening while shoveling my driveway. Hail Gary and the chat and the 199. Hail to you, Shaggy.
There you
go. I have never ever had to do that. I've never shoveled snow in my life.
It's fun exercise, or at least that's what I tell
myself. I don't even know when the last time I saw snow was. Oh, actually, it was a few years ago.
When we.
I was gonna say, didn't it snow in Texas?
Yeah.
Very minimal shoveling.
Yeah. I count on one hand how many times I've even seen it snow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Snow's the best.
My entire life.
I
think I have been alive. In the time that I've been alive, two or three times I've seen snow. Crazy, man.
Yeah, I was just in it, and that was probably the hardest. That was the first time. No, that's not true, because there was a blizzard in San Diego last year that was not expected. We were in the desert, Luke, heading towards San Diego, going over the Anza Borrego Mountains. Right. So it's like these deserty mountains, and I'm like, oh, it's some rain clouds coming up, and we're gonna hit 6,000 feet. probably not going to snow. It's fine. We get up there. It's a fucking blizzard in San Diego County. It's like,
no way.
Yeah, it's when the snow level got so low that it snowed throughout the entirety of Los Angeles. It's the first time it's happened in 5 decades.
That's crazy.
Wild.
Yeah, it was fucking wild. And what made it worse is Southern California drivers who can't drive in the rain really can't drive in the snow.
Oh man, yeah.
I can't imagine. 4x4, so
Sounds like my people.
That's your people. Brent Wolf for $50 says Carthaginian coins is of the Carthaginian coin is of a horse, and the bottom edge is said to be a world map. You can Google Carthaginian map coin and see the theory. Go check it out, Garrett. I'll read one from John Kennedy for $10.
So
thank you, Brent. Thank you. Appreciate you. Gary, Luke, Quarterblack, Adam, and the wonderful X-Ray Girl. Thank you for what you do. You are appreciated. You may not realize, but you are helping others and doing God's work. Please keep up the good job. Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
I don't know how to answer that sometimes. I'm just super grateful. And if we're helping you get through a day at work or hard time or just some boredom, it is our honor. It is our honor. The Happy Plague Doctor for $10. Curious of Luke's views on Robert. How do I say this last name? X-Ray Girl. Sepper. Sepper.
Oh, yeah.
The world's most dangerous anthropologist.
I think he and I have talked once, but it was really like we were bonding over how much of an asshole some other guy is.
Okay.
But I Sepper some way you I don't really keep up with him. Well, you know what's kind of sad is like all throughout high school and college, a lot of the people who are kind of my peers now were people who I spent all my free time watching their YouTube videos. Now that I make my own YouTube videos, I keep up with nobody. There's a very few people, and they're all directly aligned, like with my interests or things that I need to be researching, who I really keep up with what they're putting out. I have to be really meticulous about keeping up with some of my peers or people that I'm friends with and the videos that they're putting out and what they're researching, because I just don't have the time to, keep up with what everybody.
I understand that.
Yeah,
it's too much.
It's difficult. But it's good to keep an eye on your sphere, right? I think that's really important, but that's a difficult balance. I completely get you.
Yeah, well, and it's like a lot of people in my sphere, every time they put out something, it can be an hour to 3 hours long. I'm like, oh gosh.
I know.
Right?
That's why I love yours.
Speed.
Your sphere is all evergreen. You can watch the video you put out today, can be watched 5 years from now, and it will have the same value, right? So that's why the sphere is great. I mean, shit. I talked about it last time. We talked the original Graham and Randall interview with Joe Rogan, and then their previous 2 solo ones. I still listen to those. Those things are almost 10 years old now.
Yeah.
So
and they're still great.
Yeah, and they're still great. Nostro Luca for $2 says just cuz. Well, thank you.
Cheers.
Sebastian Anon for $20. You mentioned last week, Gary, about human life coming from outer space. Watch the anime Gall Force Eternal Story. It has the same premise. Oh, cool. And it's not panspermia. It's not just a bunch of microbes falling off of a meteor. I don't think it's that. That could be how it's spread throughout the universe, but I think we came from something else. John Orchard for $10. If the Romans could create the aqueducts from miles away and invent hydraulic concrete, then why not create other things? Well, the Romans were amazing, and a lot of the stuff they developed took years to redevelop after their civilization fell. Their plumbing was better than a lot of civilizations that were after them.
Didn't we just recently figure out how to make the concrete?
Yes, I think that
was that Roman concrete.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it has to do. I think it has to do with it was made from ash, I believe.
Yeah,
ash,
it was the materials that were around.
Yeah,
yeah. Well, of course,
at that time,
it was the materials that are around them, but it's almost like their concrete was kind of
probably
like,
learned from Pompeii. Sorry.
Yeah, well, you know what? I should look into that. I should look into if that kind of concrete exists before Pompeii, because Pompeii erupts in what 67 AD, something like that, and so Rome is starting to. The empire is really starting to ramp up and get to its height. So I should look in to see if they had that kind of concrete then. But man, the Romans invented so much, dude. They were this close to an industrial revolution. If they had just put 2 and 2 together, that steam and coal, if you brought those two things together, boom, it exploded. They were so far along that like there's a really funny story of an inventor who creates some kind of like a steam. It's like this steam powered rotating device of some kind. We don't really know exactly what it is, but he put it underneath his house, and there were people having a party up above him, and this guy was the guy who lives above him or next to him is hosting parties all the time, and he's like asking him like, hey man, this is obnoxious, can you stop this? And so he uses this steam powered machine of some kind, we don't know exactly what it is, and it vibrates the guy's house and shakes it and scares all the people into thinking that there's an earthquake. And I think that this is post Pompeii, so everyone's got PTSD from the city being wiped off the map because of an earthquake, and then this mountain explodes, so yeah, he shakes this guy's house next to him to get all the people to leave the house. So I mean, these people were just oh my gosh, right on the
I got a woo book called Technology of the Gods that like some of it's complete bullshit. I love the book, by the way. It's by David Hatcher Childress. I highly recommend it. But he goes into briefly the Chinese culture and how fucking advanced they were. Like they were sick. They were making clocks and doing all this shit, and Roman candles weren't from Romans. They were from the Chinese, and they lost again. They did it to themselves too. They lost so many of their records. So many of their emperors just burned their shit up, and just like, nope. History starts with me now. Yep, right. And there's all kinds of crazy weird. That was something my kid was fascinated with. Like, there's a couple videos out there. Like, what if the Roman civilization had continued, like hadn't fallen, and they'd be way more advanced than us. Way more advanced than us right now. It's an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah. Well, when they say that the Library of Alexandria, when that burned down, it set the world back 1,000 years. Well, there were multiple instances within the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire that set the world back 1,000 years, and the fall of Rome set the world back 1,000 years. Because in Europe, what happens? We enter into the medieval times, the dark
ages.
And so that's why they're called that, because in the Dark Ages, they didn't have the technology or or they weren't keeping up with and writing their history in the same way that the Romans were. So that's why, we know so
little about it. And it's still not completely decided what environmental disaster caused them. They think it's a volcano, but they're kind of torn between what location, because they think one might be in Iceland and the other one was starts with a T. Can't remember it. There's a couple of great documentaries on it that are older, but they're fascinating. And they found out basically it's a volcano through rings and trees. That's how they figured it out.
One other thing, I know we're kind of getting close to the end, but I have a video coming out on this week, so it's Sunday. Let's say tomorrow or Tuesday it's going to come out. But it's on my channel for members only already, so there's people who have already seen it. But I have a video that just came out, or that's about to come out, called the in quotations unknown history of the Antikythera mechanism, if you guys have heard of this. And so
we've talked about
it. It's this device that comes from Hellenistic Greece around the 2nd century BC. So 2nd century means 100 BC to 200 BC. And so it comes from like the mid 2nd century, and we don't know the name of a lot of inventors during this time. Like we know of Hipparchus, who was an astronomer and a mathematician, but before him we know like of Archimedes and a few other guys. And so Archimedes kind of gets thrown in there with the Antikythera. Oh, it was just an Indiana Jones, so like everybody knows about it right now.
Yeah, they were using it to save Hitler.
Well, we were talking about it before that.
Yeah. So oh yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to say that you guys knew about it because of Indiana Jones. I just mean
I know. We know.
We got it.
I just mean it's popular right now.
Yeah.
Because of that. But Archimedes really had nothing to do. Well, he is not the guy who held the Antikythera in his hand. We know that because the inscriptions on the Antikythera align to 2nd century BC Greece literature. And so, they're starting to form like really complex literature at this time, and it's changing, as the generations go on. So Archimedes lived in the 3rd century BC. So anyways, but it's likely that he could have been involved in like the origins of the Antikythera, but it's essentially a device that is the very first analog computer ever created in the ancient world. So it is, it has 37 different bronze cogs and gears on the inside, and it's powered by a dial. So you rotate the dial, and you kind of you rotate the dial, and it spins the gears on the inside, and it displays planetary alignments, orbits, and can predict lunar and solar eclipses. It can predict like planetary paths. It's just a stupidly complicated device.
Fucking mind-boggling.
Stupidly complicated. So this is what's crazy about it. This is my favorite part in this video I just made. It doesn't, well, I mean, it fits in the time that it's in, but you wouldn't think that it does. It's indicative of oh my God, like what Greek mathematicians and scientists, astronomers were capable of is so far beyond what we commonly give them credit for, even though we know that they created this. So it was way ahead of the ancient world in the time that it was created in. In the time that it was found, it was still ahead. It was found in the year 1900, and it was still ahead of technology.
Yeah, that's nuts. Yeah, it's absolutely nuts.
Yes,
and
we don't give ourselves enough credit.
The Greeks get a lot of credit for stuff, but I think there's a lot of evidence of, especially astronomy and that goes into the distant past.
The Greeks, the Greeks, they get all of their philosophy comes from Egypt, but we just don't know the names of the Egyptians. So like, the Greeks, they're trying to figure out.
They conveniently forgot to give credit. That's what they did.
Yes, essentially. And Greece took over Egypt. So what do they, eventually under Alexander, and a little bit before that, they were in Egypt as well. But they take over Egypt. And so obviously, there was probably some wiping away of like, of some written history there, to exalt the Greeks. I mean, the Greeks, when they were trying to figure out how best to run their Olympic Games, it was apparently so complicated that they needed to get a lot of their philosophers or, their statesmen to go down to Egypt and consult with Egyptian philosophers and be like, how would you guys handle this? So everything in the classical world ends up back in Egypt. So I guarantee you can trace all of the Greek and Roman sciences back to Egypt. That is 100%.
So it was Egypt who came up with the idea everybody should be naked.
It's getting kind of close there.
Yeah. Everybody should be naked.
The Greeks do a lot of strange little things like
they were very Greek.
Yeah.
We'll just say it.
Leave it there.
Say it that way.
Aaron Bacon for £2 British. You mean Russell Crowe doing a version of Cincinnatus? I was going to say Cincinnati. Cincinnatus. Maybe. We'll find out when Gladiator 2 comes out this year. Brent Wolf for $50. The big clue about Roman concrete was that it was salt water, not just water, like the formula in the Roman books said.
Interesting.
So they didn't listen to the Roman books, just like they don't listen to the indigenous people and their legends, just like, fucking normal. Rich Uncle Cheapskate for $9.99 says, never forget, kids, modern academics, professors, doctors, and those who are supposed to be the smartest amongst us will look at you in the eye and say, a man can get pregnant. Great point. Great point.
You're
including
correct.
Harvard professors, but usually they'll just plagiarize that. Phoenix on the web for $2. Any Maya connection to the American Indians? What do you think, Luke?
Maya connection to the American Indians?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't mean to be too on the nose, but the Maya are American Indians.
There you go.
However,
did they travel
North
north?
American
Did they travel north?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, for sure. It's we know for certain that through the Chihuahuan Desert that kind of separates like the Mexican Valley where Mexico City is and where like the border of Texas is. That's all the Chihuahuan Desert. Really tough terrain to navigate, but there were trade routes that go through there. And when I was talking about the fall of Mesoamerican civilization around 800 AD, on the other side of that volcano, El Chichon volcano in Chiapas, all of the civilizations to the west of there collapsed at the same time as the volcano. So there were a lot of things going on there. When that collapses, we see civilization in North America completely change its culture. Why? Because they weren't being influenced by Mesoamerica anymore. We see a complete change of their architectural style, of their gods, of the settlements that they inhabit. Now that's in the American Southwest, like your cliff dwellings and your like mud brick places. Over in the Mississippian culture, which is what we typically think of when you're saying, yeah, I misunderstood you at first when you said Native American. I'm so ingrained, like academically, Native American can mean anyone in all three continents. But Native American, typically people just mean North America. That's just kind of like the slang for it. So I'm sorry about that. But it's theorized that potentially around the time of the fall of the Maya, sometime afterwards, around 1100 AD, so about 900 years ago, that there were settlements in northern Georgia that have mound structures that are five-sided mound structures. And so anything that's five-sided typically represents a culture who acknowledges I'm not an expert on the study of Venus or like the astrology behind Venus, but typically five-sided structures come from civilizations who acknowledge I don't think it's the precession of Venus, but they track Venus in the sky. So Venus makes a five-sided star in the sky astronomically. And there are a ton of other people that explain that better than me, but there are five-sided mound structures in northern Georgia that have terracing that seem to be pretty dang similar to ancient Maya settlements that would have predated 1100 AD. And also northern Georgia, environmentally is pretty similar to throughout a large part of the year is pretty similar to the Yucatan, very green, just as mountainous as like Chiapas and some areas in Honduras. So, there's even a possibility that not just were they connected, that some native North Americans literally were Maya people that traveled, that sailed across through the trade routes that connected the Yucatan to Cuba to Florida, and then traveled up until they settled in a place that they were like, this kind of represents
kind of looks like home.
Yeah. Right. So, now, however, when I talk about that on Twitter, oh man, I get slammed by academics who, they know better than me. But
yeah, because the Maya would like never want to escape a volcano and go north. The survivors. That would never happen.
Doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense at all. Mickey the Candyman for $10 says, I think LiDAR is providing how large some of the civilizations were. Hope to see Luke at the next Cosmic Summit. Sounds like it will. Yep. I learned more from him and people like him than my world history teacher. Hail all. This is true. That's what they're worried about. You don't need to pay $100,000 to send your kid to get stupid and in debt.
Yep. Exactly.
The Donut King for $5. It's smallpox. The same will happen when the aliens arrive. It already did. It was called monkeypox. Daneska for €5. It is obvious that there used to be a global civilization. Every great civilization used to be in contact with each other. I believe that. We need more proof, but I believe that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Conglin.
I think that there's certainly, as someone who I really try to stay objective as a historian, it's hard for, I can't just like full on jump on the boat on that. But I think that there is enough, I don't even know if I want to call it anecdotal evidence, but there's enough anomalies out there that for anybody who believes that, I think that there is enough evidence for somebody to jump on that, wagon and believe that. I try to be objective and kind of like I was saying with the handbags, it certainly goes against my common sense to look at those two things and think that they're not connected. But when you really try to dive in and prove that connection, you can't prove it.
Because they're separated by thousands of years in some cases. And
So that's not evidence that they're not connected. It's just not enough for me as an anthropologist to say absolutely 100% they are, So I'm kind of somewhere stuck in the middle, but
I totally understand.
My whole attitude towards a lot of this stuff, I'm trying to find the clip. No, I can't find it. Is this.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
That's pretty much my
What's
attitude.
going on?
Dude, I say that all the time. Hold up.
Conglian for $5. The connection between civilizations becomes obvious in a young Earth creationist worldview. It does.
It really does.
I've heard some. The late great Neil Adams, comic artist, prolific comic artist, was a big proponent of the shrinking Earth theory, and talked my ear off on it at a Comic-Con. And I'm like, He made it sound really convincing.
Like it's shrinking a lot.
If you want to hear, I don't have time for it, but there is an Art Bell episode, on the internet, with Neil Adams, where he talks about it. I'd say go give it a listen. Gregory Lieber for $2 says 0 to 50 city. Oh, the 0 and 50 city, the Mayan generals. I'll give it to you then. Crypto Kev for $5. We need a privately funded NIDS type organization for archaeology, free of politics and paradigm shielding. Let's see where the evidence leads us. We really, there needs to be a Robert Bigelow. Oh, everybody needs a rich benefactor, sugar daddy, but there kind of needs to be one for Age of Civilization research. Elon, I know Elon, like he knows Graham. He knows of Graham. Yeah,
he's close.
Yeah, Elon's like he's in the peripheral of this whole world. I think he's interested in it, but I think he's got so much crap going on.
Yeah.
He's a busy boy.
Genghis Khan, Tomb of the Emperor of China's Tomb, says Bubba Cafe for $2. Those big stones we were looking at. We don't know. Genghis Khan wasn't buried in. It was a very secret location where they buried him, and I think only like 5 people knew where it was, and it was somewhere in the mountains. That's all I know.
Where they buried him, and then they killed the guys that buried him, or is that Conan? Am I thinking of something?
That might be Conan. No, very few people knew where he was. I know maybe they did kill. No, I can't remember. I know I've watched it on a history special, and I forgot about it.
You know what's crazy? In his conquests, they were so. And you know what's funny is like, the perspective of history. He's pretty far back in remote antiquity, especially in the area that he conquered. It's funny that people like consider him a badass today, whereas they wouldn't consider people who have committed mass genocide within the last century a badass. But that guy, he decimated civilization such to a point that there were people who arrived in the cities that he had sacked, and they had to get off of their horses and wagons because the roads in city centers were so bogged down with with old, dead, rotting bodies that the bodies had started to mix with the mud and rain, and all of the ground was just body mush everywhere they went. That the wagons were creating ruts in dead bodies, slaughtered men, women, and children, everybody.
And rape the shit out of women.
Yeah.
Like a lot of women.
Yep. Crazy.
And they're like, go to the grill.
The most I've seen of Mongolia is the Grand Tour special. Sorry to go back to that, but the Grand Tour Mongolia special is fucking fantastic. And then you're like, how did a guy from here, from basically a giant cow pasture with some mountains, with nothing, almost take over the world? And it's like one of the most sparsely populated countries on the planet. Like nobody fucking lives there.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Yeah,
that's determination. But yeah, he was brutal. And they were really good with horses.
Really good
technology. That's what they
they told the story of how he got a message across his empire, and he would have like 25 horses lined up ready to go. So one guy would get a message, go full tilt on a horse for 25 miles, stop, get on another horse, go. And I think there was another rider, but he could get a message across his empire pretty quick that way. And yeah, tons of horses, had a shitload of horses. That helped. Man. That helped.
Oh yeah.
Daneska for £2 anti-gravity technology. I will die on that hill. It's okay. Never know. Josh Kelsey for $5. Luke, how underestimated do you think the old South American civs are? Like 50% bigger or more, like the multiples bigger 2 to 3 times?
South American Josh Kelsey said something.
I know. Weird.
Whoa.
Oh. By the way, I'm going to applaud that.
Wow.
Thanks, John.
I think that they are. I don't know if I'm saying this the right way. Maybe 150% the size that they're estimated to be. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I would estimate maybe 150%, maybe 200%, which would be twice as big. Maybe twice as big. But I would say that 150% or 50% larger than they currently are, however you properly say that, is what I would estimate as to how big they are. That'd be a conservative guess. But the estimations for the total population of the ancient Americas really varies quite heavily. There are some like really conservative archaeologists that would estimate that there were only like 50 or 60 million people in the Americas, and then there are people like Dr. Ed Barnhart who I really respect him, and he says definitely north of 100 million lived, and
a lot of fucking people.
In my experience of just being in Central America and Southern Mexico, and just seeing how much larger the population is of the Maya world than I was previously led to believe. I wouldn't be surprised if it's twice as big,
Xavier Hart for $5 Australian says, "G'day. I have made more progress on my Lego tabletop war game. More weapons, refined rules. I'm going to have it done by June." Good. Then you can fly over, because X-Ray Girl was supposed to do it and she didn't do it. And build my Lego Rivendell and Hogwarts Castle.
I was told to come in the summer.
Oh, is that what you
around Anime Matsuri? So
did the boss say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a better time.
Yeah, she knows more than me. A lot more than me. Severin, welcome to the Traveler level. Thank you very much. The Happy Plague Doctor who's a travel said there has never been a movie about the building of the pyramids. Make it happen. Not a good. There hasn't been a good Atlantis. Point. There hasn't been an Atlantis movie. There hasn't been an old age, about the building of the pyramids. We are getting an Atlantis movie that is coming from Roland Emmerich.
That's right.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes.
I like the animated one, although it's
I think it would be fun to do like don't make it historical. Just like do like a fantasy movie about Atlantis, but not like spaceships and shit. Like keep it as grounded as possible. Just pre-civilization, kind of like Lord of the Rings, but treat it as history. I think that would be fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
Curtis Bartel, welcome to the travel. I can't talk.
Traveler.
Anymore. Thank you. Vertigo is a traveler. Says, love the show, yo, but just had to add that the Longview caves are fake and probably CCP propaganda. I don't think so. I don't think so. Because there's more. There's way more, and they haven't drained them yet. So they've drained 5, and there's 18 more. 18 more passages.
And when did they discover the Longview caves?
Okay, yeah. That would go against a communist government. Now, they're not like completely they're communist enough to use capitalism to fund their communism and stay in power. So, but communism is not a big fan of history, is not a big fan of God, and they don't let anybody near the pyramids. They do not let people fuck with the pyramids. Now, there's cultural reason that there's dead people in there, respect the dead, but they also don't want people digging around their pyramids. And there's hundreds of them. They're all over, and they try to cover them up.
Yeah, because there's nothing before the current government. Okay,
communist
always CCP.
The government is God.
Yeah.
The people. They don't say it like that. The government is for the people. Like the whole communist argument that communism doesn't say you don't own property. It's just the people own the property, and that's you. So you own the property. It's like, no. And who's the people? The government. Such a fucking it's almost like I've read it. I've read the whole manifesto bullshit thing. It's fucking terrible. JP Traveler. It's written like a rich kid who never worked. Oh yeah, Karl Marx.
Oh,
I love these rabbit holes. Says JB, who's on the Traveler. Josh, welcome to the Travelers. John Kennedy, Traveler says, I believe 1 in 8 people in Mongolia is descended from Genghis Khan, so he fornicated with a lot of women. It's more than that. Well, it's 1 in 8.
I thought it was
Mongolia.
The Earth.
It is a large portion of the entire Earth's population.
Yeah,
like it's. I forgot what the percentage is. They mentioned it. Like 10.
That's high.
Fucking high.
Is it 8?
Let me see.
I think
one,
that's
insane.
right.
Yeah, if it's 1, that is crazy.
How did he screw that many people? I mean, just how?
Yeah, crazy.
Wow. So it's about 8% of men living in the Mongol region. So it's 60 million descendants.
Familiar, That's insane.
Yeah.
60 million descendants.
Wow.
So it's just in the Mongol region.
God,
Okay,
that's crazy, man.
That's fucking insane.
That's
All right, we're gonna wrap it up here. Luke, thank you for joining us. Tell us what you got coming up.
I just put out like a 20-minute exploration video today of me going through the Great Pyramid of Bacan, which is a city, like an ancient city in Campeche, Mexico, in the jungles out there. And then this year, I am planning to kind of reboot my YouTube channel. I am going to dive into what life was like in the ancient world. Kind of like we were talking earlier, like the life of a peasant in ancient Egypt, the life of a peasant in ancient Rome. I have so many of these that are going to be little, dives into what the world was like. And I'll also be doing lost civilizations and lost technologies of some kind. Like I just did the Antikythera mechanism. That's awesome. But I'm going to be diving into my bread and butter and studying what life actually was like in the ancient world. And so it'll be the ancient Americas. It'll be Egypt, Greece, and Rome. And those are really the areas that I spend my time studying. Other than that, I have 2 expeditions coming in March. One, I'm doing an Olmec expedition, and then I'm doing an expedition with a group of people. John, if he's on here, he's become a good friend of mine. I think he's a loyal watcher of this podcast.
Hail.
John, long last name. If he's in the.
Oh yes,
yeah.
yes.
We know
What's
John
up,
Long
John?
last
name.
What's up, John?
He came to San Antonio. We had dinner together, and
Wow! Oh my
he
gosh!
told me some really cool stories of him in the military, and I have a lot of respect for him. So he's coming to the Yucatan with me in March. Yeah, cool.
What's up, John?
Really awesome guy. He gave me like a PhD level book on ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs and some other things in ancient Egypt that I've kind of looked into. Yeah. So I think that's him when he was here in San Antonio for the eclipse. So yeah, that's kind of what I got going on. I'm working on my book. And then, oh my gosh. So this year, all right. So I'm doing an Olmec expedition. Then I'm doing my Maya Yucatan tour. And then in the summer, I'm going to Oaxaca to look at some of the other Mesoamerican ruins. There, some Zapotec ruins out there. And then I'm going to, I'm finally getting out to Machu Picchu in September.
So jealous.
Yeah. So I'm going to finally get out to Machu Picchu in September. And then in October, I go to Egypt for 10 days. And then I come back for 1 day. And then I have an expedition in Guatemala at the first week of November. And then in December, I go back to Chiapas to go back to Palenque. So yeah, this is gonna be my biggest year ever, my busiest year ever, and I'm hoping that my YouTube like finally takes off, and I shouldn't say this, but we're 3.5 hours in, so I don't think anybody's gonna see this. But I'm hoping to get out of my day job and really dive into this full time. So
dang, with all that traveling and a day job,
as we discussed at dinner, I think it's your calling, dude. So
yeah, man, absolutely.
You should do it.
Yeah, these trips will probably cost me my day job, so my YouTube needs to be moving before all these major trips come up, because either way, I don't think I'm gonna have a job by the time summer comes around.
YouTube almost cost me my day job. That's why I just quit, because I was watching YouTube all day.
Oh yeah.
So not much has changed.
I was so good at my job. I mean, sorry, I'm not like, I've done the job forever. I was so good at it. My work was done in 2 hours, and I had to sit there for 6 more. So I'm like, all right, I'll watch Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers and Yellow Flash. Dude, Luke, you're awesome. Can't wait to have you back. We need to have dinner because same state. Yeah. We'll just say, and we need to hang out, and that'll be fun. And San Antonio meetup in you might be in Egypt though.
Oh, when is it?
It's SpaceCon is the first weekend of October. Gina Carano's going to be in San Antonio. Yeah.
Maybe Anime Matsuri.
Maybe Anime Matsuri.
Okay, if it's first week of October, I think I'll still be in town. I think it's the last week of October I'm in Egypt, and the first week of November I'm in Guatemala.
All right. Yeah. So
let's do it. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's meet up. Let's have dinner. Let's go see cringe woke movies.
I can't wait. I love having people. I've been going alone lately. So, but comics, comics is my date now, and you could be my date to go watch Madam Web. Can't wait to see Madam Web.
What a great concept for a movie, and it's probably not going to be.
It's going to be terrible.
George.
It's gonna be terrible. George, are you finally done streaming? George, you jerk, George. He's just giving me my $100 back that I sent him. George!
Hi.
You realize we both just gave YouTube $60. George! Love you, man. Hail, George.
Thanks, George.
You son of a bitch. I'll get you for that next live stream.
Congratulations on having a live stream, man.
It looked really
fun. It was awesome. I watched it.
Quarter Black, what do you got coming up?
This
Luke? Sorry, Luke.
Oh, yeah, finish.
Oh,
you were going to say something?
I think that. Oh well, we still have some spots. So John long last name is joining me on my expedition to the Yucatan. It's myself and my friend NEXT, who's an expert in all things ancient Egypt and ancient Maya. And so he's joining us, and we've got like 2 or 3 spots left on that trip. And it's not too late to book it and join us. We're going to be going to see Maya sites in the Yucatan. Like Chichen Itza, and we're going to be there during the equinox. Like when.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So you can see the shadowed serpent of Kukulkan like slithering down the pyramid. We'll also be seeing Uxmal, Skitchmook, Labna, there's going to be a couple other like surprise sites as well. So
is there a link or something?
Oh, April is solar eclipse in San Antonio. Well, it's close to San Antonio. Yeah. There's links on my page for that tour. So then there's an event that I'm involved with Brothers of the Serpent. If you guys are familiar with them,
yes,
had them on the show. Brothers of the Serpent. They're great friends of mine. Oh yeah, y'all did have them on. They're great friends of mine. They live like just an hour down the road. Yeah, I'm sorry, we talked about them earlier. And so we have an event coming up called Eclipse at the Canyon, and so that's going to be in April when there's the full total eclipse. And so Ben from Uncharted X is going to be out there. Gary, you got to come.
I'll go, dude. Let's make it. I will be there. I will absolutely be there.
So we're gonna be camping out there, and myself and Ben and David Matheson, and I think either Russ or Kyle is going to give a presentation of some kind. I'm probably gonna do like sacrificial rituals, that were performed like during the eclipse, something like that. I might call it like feeding the gods or something.
You should bring the Doctor Who videos for Dr. Karen.
So
still in my
so we got that coming up. So there's so much coming up this year. Like I'm really excited.
Right on. Thank you, Sebastian.
I think that's everything. But if you guys want to join me, you can just click on any one of my videos, and it's going to be linked in the description if you want to see what
the link in the chat for the eclipse.
Heck yeah.
Thanks, Luke. Garrett.
Tomorrow, Adam, Crigler, me, Flawed, all the boys on Bay Staff Monday, and then Normal World starts on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We are returning. We're doing shows again. So watch that. And I look forward to reading your book, Luke, and watching all those videos, because that's my type of content. Mm-hmm. I love I watch the medieval ones where it's like what it's like to live as a peasant during medieval times. Like I love that kind of stuff. So I look forward to seeing this from a different point in the world. So
yeah,
for sure. Well, and I can't wait to have you back. Thanks for coming on. It was great as always. Didn't disappoint.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you. And X-Ray Girl, what do you got coming up?
Ooh, tomorrow I think I'm going to do this actually at 1 p.m. I'm going to watch for the first time Running Man and Demolition Man. So you'll see my reaction. You won't see the movie, but you might see subtitles about them. Yes. Gary suggested the Running Man. The Demolition Man was Chat. We love Chat. And thank you, Luke, for coming on. I'm actually very, very excited. I'm going to echo what Garrett said, but I did a course, Ancient Greek culture. And if you dive into more different types of culture, it's just going to be like the cherry on top for me. One of my favorite courses that's not science related. Like,
for
really,
sure.
really science related.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cheers. There was one more super chat.
Oh, yeah. We saw that one. April is the solar eclipse in San Antonio, full solar eclipse. And the Snake Bros are going to do an event, and I'm going to sign up and I'll be there. I'll if it's camping, I'm down. I am freaking down. Awesome. Come on down, Garrett. You can do it too.
I've been talking about camping.
You guys can share a tent.
I ain't sharing a tent with Quarterbike Garrett and his freaking kids. That's like 800. That's like 10 kids. That's like a basketball team in a tent.
The space alone is just.
I am gonna have my 10-year anniversary stream tomorrow. Channel's 10.
Wow! Congratulations!
Thank you. I might jump on Chris Gore's Film Threat Golden Globe watch party for 5 minutes, and then I'm gonna watch Buffy. We just released a video today. Go check it out.
Watch it.
Go check it out. Garrett edited that in a night. In a effing
You're a powerhouse. Oh my god.
Night. I could not believe it. I was totally expecting to go. You're like, I can't do it, dude. Let's save it till Monday. I'm like, all right.
We had a good system. We had a good system going on, so it worked.
But thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. It's been a really fun show. We love Luke. Go subscribe to Luke Caverns. Follow him on Instagram, right? You're on Instagram. I'm never on Instagram, so.
Yeah, it's just my name. Anywhere you want to look me up, it's just my name.
And Twitter. Give him a follow on Twitter as well. And go down the Luke Caverns rabbit hole. He's got some good videos and stuff. And he's on a lot of other podcasts that are very good. that are very good podcasts. People I watch all the time. So thanks again, everybody. Thanks to the Nerdrotics. You did a great job. Thanks to everyone who left a super chat and donation. You help keep the lights on, and we will see you next week.
See ya.
Bye.
Nerdrotic.com.
Welcome, travelers, to the fringes of reality, where the strange and mysterious meet, and the thin veil between fact and fiction is torn. Welcome to the Forbidden Frontier.